Great. Hello, everybody, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're dialing in from. I am Lisa Shell, and if you weren't with us last week, I'm going to go ahead and reintroduce myself and kick off today's session. So welcome to the fourth of 5 sessions for this year's ACWR's virtual conference, Pioneers of the New Normal. I am Lisa Shell again, as I said, and I'm the Congregation Archivist for the Adrian Dominican Sisters in Adrian, Michigan. And I'm also serving as the current ACWR President-elect for this board year. Today's sessions center on technology and archives. And in just a few moments, I will hand the mic over to Lisa Gibbon, who will be our today's moderator and introduce our panelists. But first, I was asked today to introduce myself, so I'm just going to take a few moments and do that so that you can all get to know me just a little bit better. So first off, I would like to thank Lisa Gibbon, the Director of Archives at the Congregation of St. Joseph in Cleveland, Ohio, who called me up a few months ago and asked me if I was interested in leadership. I gulped and said yes. And I was nominated for this board position, and as they say, the rest is history. So I would like to publicly thank Lisa, so thank you, Lisa, for this endorsement and making this day possible, and I am very excited to serve in this role. So I suspect my journey into archiving is similar to many of yours, and not necessarily one that is unique or even remarkable, but I believe there is a story within every story. And since we are in the business of storytelling, I would just simply like to quickly share my story. Perhaps a mentor, a family member, a class that you took, or somebody just simply saying, hey, you're really good at organizing things. Or like me, you simply like dusty old things with stories are some of the reasons that brought you to this space of archiving. So I am the proud granddaughter of a man by the name of Zdzisław Hajbura, a Polish Catholic immigrant by way of Siberian work camps during World War II, by way of Tanzania, where he worked as an auto mechanic at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, and later in England, working as a stage actor in 1951. In 1952, he finally made his way with an approved visa to America. And the only other Zdzisław he knew in America called himself Gordy. So that was the name he took. I grew up listening to these stories of how he and his family survived World War II and post-war times. Specifically on my mom's side, my family came from Italy. And through that generation, I heard many stories about the old country and the foods and the traditions that we celebrated and where they came from. This is why I love history, storytelling, and value preservation. Without these histories, like many of ours, either collectively or individually, our ancestral lines would be lost. Similar, when I think of archiving other histories, all I have to do is look to my predecessors when I have questions. Like many of you, I am sure when researching, you find buried treasures in your archives, words of wisdom that inspire us to do what we do. In my short time here in Adrian, I've discovered 2 powerful voices, and I'd like to share excerpts from each one of them. Our congregation historian, Sister Mary Philip Ryan, once wrote in a letter to the sisters in 1979 that, quote, others among the living, it seems, do not see the importance of their personal history in relation to the whole. She quotes, human beings do not live forever. We live less than the time it takes to blink an eye. If we measure our lives against eternity, a blink of an eye of itself is nothing, but the eye that blinks, that is something. A span of life is nothing, but the woman who lives, that life is something. She goes on, history is like a seamless garment. In every something there is a strand. In the case of Adrian Dominican history, it takes its style and form from the people, the places, the circumstances that have brought women together, from birth, family, religion, education, neighborhood, and friendship influences. It cannot be complete without every sister something. It is cold without memories of people who met and mingled in community, who laughed and talked and plugged along together. One more piece of archival advice: even before our congregation had a dedicated archives, our very own Mother General, Mary Gerald Berry, once wrote in letters of the congregation, who understood the value of what we now call metadata, and as we know, is not cannot be possible without the technology that we'll be talking about today. She once wrote in 1952, "Let me call attention to the practice that is prevalent in some of your letters. The heading has no name of convent, no address, and no date. Now, my dear children, it is impossible to know the exact date and the year of the correspondence from this mode of evidence. Be old-fashioned enough, at least, to put down the calendar year." Since 2018, I have served as the Congregation Archivist for the Adrian Dominican Sisters, managing, preserving, and purifying this dynamic collection, and also have been serving as an engaged member of the ACWR community. As an information ambassador, I value the intersection between professionalizing women of religious archives and the invaluable and transformative stories of sisters as subject matter experts in sharing their lived experiences and the delicate balance that happens between privacy and access. My previous expertise and experience is uniquely rooted in both academia and the corporate sector. I earned my MLIS from Wayne State in 2011, and I have certificates in both archival administration and records management. I am duly mastered with a Museum Studies cert and spent 15 years teaching high school history, and also served as a guest speaker for both Dominican University and Wayne State University's MLIS programs. As a corporate archivist for nearly 8 years, I project managed high volume collections for companies like GM, Carhartt, Mary Kay Cosmetics, Viacom's MTV Vault Project, Hilton, and Kraft Heinz in extremely complex content management systems while managing internship programs and teams up to 20 members to improve their collections and also preserve the enduring value of those collections by telling a compelling story. I understand the benefits of collaboration, promoting the collections of women of religious as an act of legacy building, an extension of congregation charism, and by doing this, by following current research and archival trends. I currently co-lead a specialized group of Dominican archivists for common challenges and customizable best practices. Since I've been in Adrian, we have created also an internship program. We've enhanced the volunteer model, and we have conducted outreach engagements that increase awareness about archival preservation and the benefit of records management. Recognizing the inevitable fulfillment of congregations, I am working to transform the archival record as a continuation of Sisters ministry through access, scholarly research, publication, and programming. I strongly believe that archiving is an expression of storytelling and can only be successfully achieved when both lay archivists and sisters align in mission. Sisters can only be the ones who can truly tell their own stories, and lay archivists can help in preserving those stories for prosperity. As the incoming ACWR president-elect, I commit to working closely with the board to expand our membership, to enhance our resource model, serve as a liaison to the LCWR, and support ACWR initiatives in mentoring, educational programming, and collaborations across communities. For today, we have some very timely topics related to technology. They include engaging membership through technology, managing digital donations, and the email question that I know Scott will clear up for us. When I think of how technology works in archives, I am reminded of two coexisting truths. On one hand, technology signals a way to professionalize a collection and your operations, but at the same time, it demands expertise, it demands time, and it demands resources to achieve that end. And when it falls short or works less than originally imagined, I always find that workaround solutions and returning to traditional workflows help to bridge the gap between ideal state and the real state. One of my favorite quotations regarding technology, and I say this in a whisper, is Never let a computer know that you are in a hurry. With that pearl of wisdom, I'm going to pass the mic over to Lisa Gibbon, our moderator for today, to introduce our panelists for our first presentation titled Engaging Membership Through Technology. Lisa?
My fellow Lisa, thank you so much. What a fabulous introduction to our week today, our fourth week. And somebody is sharing their screen. Okay, that should not be. Okay, great, thank you. So anyway, what a great opportunity to get to know you better. And already you've been a great asset on this, on the ACWR Executive Board. And I am off now the ACWR Executive Board. But here I am continuing to engage. All right, so today is our technology series of discussions. We're going to have three of them. Our first one will be from 12:15 to 1:15. Our second one will be from 1:30 to 2:30 with a 15-minute break. And then we'll have another 15-minute break with our third session, 2:45 to 3:45, just to recap really quick. So first of all, session number one today is called Engaging Membership Through Technology. The speakers are Scott Keefer, Catherine Lucy, and Sarah Cantor. First is Scott. Scott currently serves as the Provincial Archivist for the Daughters of Charity of the Province of St. Louis in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and he's been there since 2018. His portion is called Lessons and Observations from Social Media, and it will look at exactly what it says it will look at. Takeaways, trends, and observations from different types of posts on a few different social media platforms and the type of outreach they provide. Using both the ACWR and the Daughters of Charity social media presence, it draws its data. Scott.
Thank you, Lisa. And I should point out I'm with the province of St. Louise, not the province of St. Louis. You are not the first person who's done that.
It's okay. I knew I was going to mess that up. I'm sorry.
You're not the first person who's done that. So this portion of the presentation is called Lessons and Observations from Social Media. I'd like to give you a little bit of my credentials so that you can hopefully take my word on some of these things. I am the Archivist for the Daughters of Charity, Province of St. Louise. And in that capacity, I run the Daughters Archive Facebook page and the Daughters Archive blog. I also, in my role as chair of the ACWR Technology Committee, run the ACWR Facebook page. And I wanted to show you a few things that I have learned about using these as outreach platforms. Firstly, I want to remind everyone that ACWR does have a Facebook page. Much of the content is created by you, the ACWR members, and curated by the Technology Committee. We put out several campaigns per year and encourage you to submit materials for them to go on the page. This is an opportunity for you all to show off materials, even if it's individual items or photographs rather than full collections. And I'm hoping that this presentation will also encourage you a little bit to continue submitting entries or begin submitting entries, as well as provide some advice for your own social media duties or new initiatives. There's a few little off the top things here. I know that some of us undertake different social media projects because we want to provide a new avenue of outreach, either to our community members or to some of our affiliated groups. In other cases, social media is less of a choice of our own and one that our leadership or our communications department says, no, you have to submit a Throwback Thursday every week. It's not exactly a choice, you have to do it. Sometimes we're looking to generate interest in certain materials among researchers, among students, among academics, among sisters. Pick your group. I'm also aware that different platforms have their own rhythms and formats, and that, for example, if you have a platform that's just for the archives, it carries a little bit of a different rhythm than a community run page where material from the archives has to compete. I don't like using that term compete on this, but compete. It has to go up alongside things like community news items and other notices from the community. These all affect the goal. The first point I want to make is know your goal, or at bare minimum, the goal of the person who is running the program. What purpose are you using social media for, and what types of outreach are you attempting to undertake? Secondly, just like social media platforms take up a lot of time in our own lives, willingly or unwillingly, make sure you know that social media is going to be worth your time. It does take time to create content. It just does. And know that it's going to be worth it, whether for your goals or for the goals of the person running it. See bullet point number 1. I give the caveat in this presentation that all of these observations are my own. I'm aware of the many studies that show disinformation sells on social media, but I am also functioning on the assumption that none of us are actively engaging in fake news, clickbaity type of things, nor do we really have that extra money to spend on Facebook advertising. You can pay money to boost your thing to the top, and I doubt any of us really have that money. I am not aware of how extensively there have been studies on what works in social media in small scale organizations like our own. They probably exist, but I have not read them. In addition, despite my ability to offer suggestions of what will get you views and likes and shares, there's a certain amount of chance and guessing involved. I don't always know why something goes and does well on social media or why something doesn't do well. Sometimes I'm very surprised, but nonetheless, there are a few definite trends. And lastly, I'm going to talk a lot about stats and comparisons here. I don't always know if that's the best way to discuss such matters, or frankly, how Zuckerberg measures such things, but numbers are at least kind of verifiable, and that helps for a format like this where we need some level of baseline. That being said, stats are concrete, but they're also relative. They're gonna vary depending on the platform, how long it's been up, how much of a fan base you've built up, things like that. As a baseline for this presentation, I can say that the ACWR page, an average post gets about 300 views. And for the Daughters Archive page, usually around 800 or 900, somewhere in that range. If a post gets 1,000 views on either of them, I consider that a really good one, and anything beyond that is exceptional. But now that we're out of those things out of the way, lesson 1, text alone does not sell. Neither necessarily does a single link with a picture. For example, this is a post that went up on the ACWR page. It's just a link, a quick share. Usually there's a photo that loads up with it. It didn't for this one. I don't know why. And you can see on the right there, you can probably pull up a little laser point. You can see on the right there, whoops, it reached 63 people, at least when I went and took this screen capture. That's more than nothing. That's not a bad thing, but it didn't do particularly well. Here's another one for the Daughters Archive. This is announcing that we're letting researchers back in. It's a block of text. There's no image at all, no link, no thing that pops up. I guess since I mentioned, welcome back from COVID, they said, visit our info about COVID site, but it didn't do well. You can see down there, it's the middle one in the bottom. It got 275 views, significantly below average. And you can even see it got lower than the post immediately before or after it that did have a picture. Second lesson, amount of work input does not equal a high level of exposure. The time you invest is not necessarily equivalent to the response you will get. For example, these are 2 posts that went up on the Daughters page. They went up one day apart from each other. The one on the left was for the Feast of St. Catherine Labouré. Quick little picture of an artifact, and happy feast day. And the one on the right was 2 or 3 pictures. It took a while to find them. It's about sisters working with refugees in Cambodia, or after Cambodian refugees in Thailand after the Khmer Rouge. Took a really long time to go and get the text exactly right and really refine it to the point that I was happy with it. The one on the right got about 600 views. The one on the left that took about 60 seconds worth of thought and effort got 4,000. So, and that's not, it's not a bad thing. I'm glad that people liked it, but nonetheless, the amount of effort on the two was not anywhere close to each other, and the amount of response was the exact opposite of that effort. Third lesson, and based off of that, top posts kind of come out of nowhere. This is one of the top posts on the ACWR page. This is a group of Sisters St. Joseph of Baden. So Kathy Washi, if you're in the audience, congratulations. A group of sisters. It's a Thanksgiving type post around a little cornucopia type thing. And you can see this one got 2,600, significantly more than either of the posts before or after it. This one did very, very, very well. And this is one on the daughters page that did very well. This one, shockingly to me, got 10,000, which is an absurd number. I'd never, ever gotten that high. This is one, you can see the daughter in the old style cornet. This is Sister Alice Judge at the funeral of her brother, Father Thomas Judge, who was founder of the Trinitarian communities in Silver Spring, the men's Trinitarian community in Silver Spring, and the women's Trinitarian community in Germantown. My guess on this, and we actually don't even own these images. If you hit the see more, you could see where I go and credit the archive that does own them. But my guess on this is the usual fans of the daughters page saw it, and then a whole bunch of members and family members and affiliates of the other two communities saw it and liked it and shared it and got it a whole lot more views, which was not part of my thought process at all in putting this up. But this one did, at least to me, came out of nowhere and did shockingly well. A fourth lesson, despite not really knowing what does sell, there are things that definitely sell. Large groups of sisters in habit sell, and the unexpected does very, very well. Picture from the Daughters Archive, a whole group of sisters in front of St. Joseph's Hospital in Chicago, some of them in the, at the time, new style habit with one in the old style habit. This one got 4,300 views and get the very frequent comment, bring back the old habit. We see that a lot. It's never going to happen, but we get the comment a lot. And any group of sisters in the big habit and the old style habit will do very, very, very well. There's another example of that with the ACWR page. This one is from Sisters of Charity of St. Joseph, or of Seton Hill, I believe. So Casey, congratulations. This is a group of sisters with their nursing students on the steps of the Pennsylvania State Capitol. As you can see, oh, sorry, Casey. Whoever this was, take credit for this one. Got 1,700 views, significantly more again before or after it. And then this is another one. This is one of my favorites. It did better than average, not a superstar, but it did better than average, and I really like it. And it got 1,500. A group of sisters playing a pickup softball game outside of school in Ohio. And actually, if you zoom in on the windows, you can see a bunch of the kids' faces pressed against the glass watching the game. It's a fun one. Any sports ball one actually does really well. Some of my favorites, at least. Fifth, I am going to talk about blog content a little bit because that is something that I have started to know. Beginning in 2020, I've started to go and utilize a blog that had been retired for a little bit. Blog is a really good place to go and showcase collections or individual items. It's a chance for you to really go in depth on a topic or an item and sort of tell a little bit more of a story or a background, or even to talk about the work of archives. It's a good chance if you have interns or volunteers to let them go and create something for the archive, to give them a sense of investment. And especially for an intern, for them to have something concrete written to show a little bit more of what they did rather than just a line or two on a resume. And it also lets you follow any of your own pet projects. This snap here is from a blog post I put up. I actually didn't do as well. It's on the Hamilton letter, which is a letter that St. Elizabeth Ann Seton wrote the day of Alexander Hamilton's funeral. Didn't do as well as I expected to, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of thought if you just put up anything with Hamilton, it would get views. but this one did not get as many views as I expected it to, but nonetheless, a little pet project of mine. Two other ones that went up, one on the left, very much a pet project on the ever popular Franco-Prussian War, which actually did better than I expected. And then the one on the right, which does have pictures, if you scroll down a little bit, from actually our last intern before that program got suspended for COVID reasons. But a chance for him to go and talk a little bit about his experience and what he was doing in the archive. And I know he is in library school, so something must have worked with that. And then a final lesson here is that some posts never die. This is one that we still get questions and comments based directly on this post. Do the Daughters of Charity still wear a habit? People stumble upon it. They probably Google that exact question and get taken here, but we still get questions based directly on this post. And on Facebook, they're the same, those posts that just get likes and comments years and years after they went up. And you'll see, the most recent stuff will get a few likes and a few comments. And then sometimes you'll get a comment on, oh, here's the front door to an infant asylum. This post was up 6 years ago and people still see it. I have no idea why they still see it, but they do. Finally, social media tends to serve different audiences. A lot of the people who end up liking the page are affiliates or alumni groups rather than sisters themselves. So know that that tends to be who looks at these type of things. At the same time as that, Facebook does not actually get you that many reference requests. You'll see a lot of the same names and you'll start to build up a little bit of a following, but it doesn't actually get you that many direct inquiries. The blog actually gets you more. You'll see direct questions based on, I saw this on the blog, link, question, 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 which makes me think that the blog is a way that people do start out on their initial Google searches and then just sort of take it from there. It takes a little bit more of a researcher initiative rather than a Facebook, which tends on serendipity and if you happen to see it at the right time by the right person. Know that a platform like a blog does get you more of those reference requests and a little bit more in-depth researchers, but it also takes a lot more work to go and research and create the pictures or create the content, and certainly to write. And once again, I reiterate to everybody, know that creating content is work and time, and know that you do have to do the calculus to balance it against all of our other obligations for a bunch of people who I'm sure are very, very busy. Thank you very much. This is the end of my portion of this segment. Please follow our pages, like my pages, and help our numbers. Our quarterly reports due this month, and I like to see more people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. Wow, it's just really great food for thought. Next up is Catherine Lucy. Catherine is the director of the Carondelet Consolidated Archives for the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet in St. Louis, Missouri. She today is going to talk to us about the ACWR video tutorial series and other resources. Take it away, Catherine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Lucy, and as she said, I'm the director of the Carondelet Consolidated Archive for the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. I've been a member of ACWR since 2018, and I joined the ACWR Technology Committee in August 2020. My part of this presentation focuses on some of the wonderful resources available to members on the ACWR website. The main resource I will discuss are video tutorials that the Technology Committee created to help advise archivists on simple archival topics, procedures, and best practices. I decided to present on this topic today because I know that when I joined the Tech Committee, I didn't even know these existed. So I felt that this year's virtual conference would be a great way to get the word out. After I talk about the videos, I'll show you some other resources available on the ACWR website that you might not be familiar with. And we'll also talk about how I use the listserv to my community's benefit. Next slide, please. To access the videos, you will go to the ACWR homepage, where you'll see a screen similar to this one. One of the options across the top section is Resources, outlined in red on the slide. This is where you'll find the video tutorials. I'll show you how to access them step by step. Next slide, please. If you hover your mouse over the word Resources, a submenu appears. Click on Members Only Tutorials, also outlined in red. Next slide, please. A password-protected login screen will appear. You will type the password into the gray box and click Enter. Now I'm going to give you the password. Don't share it with anyone outside this group. It's ACWR member, all one word, lowercase letters, ACWR member. Next slide, please. This will lead you to a page where you'll see a list of 7 available tutorials. Click on the play button on each video to watch that particular tutorial. Most are about 5 to 10 minutes in length, so they're not too long. The titles of the 7 videos are Accessioning and Accrual, Elements of a Mission Statement, Adding Documents to Existing Collections, How to Digitize Photographs, Negatives, and Slides, Identifying and Storing AV Material Audio, Oral History, Equipment and Considerations, and Processing a New Collection. Next slide, please. Here's a screenshot of the video tutorial I made on how, how to digitize photographs, negatives, and slides. I've also watched the videos made by the other members, and I can tell you that each presenter does a wonderful job of adhering to archival standards and best practices. If you're new to archives, or maybe you feel like you need a refresher course on a topic, please utilize these videos. They're here to help you. And the tech committee also keeps a running list of topics for possible videos, so look for more in the future. If you have a suggestion for a video tutorial, you can send it to any one of us and we'll add it to our list. Okay, so now we're going to attempt to play about the first minute, minute and a half of this video tutorial for you as an example. Bear with us.
We good? Can we see that?
Yes. Archivist for Congregations of Women Religious video tutorial. How to digitize photographs, negatives, and slides by Catherine Lucy, Director of the Carondelet Consolidated Archive, Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. What does digitizing mean? Digitizing, or digitization, is the process of converting analog materials like a hard copy of a photograph into a digital format. Digitization is as simple as scanning the photograph on a flatbed scanner and then saving the image as a digital file. Digitizing images allows us to preserve the materials for future generations, especially if the original object is deteriorating. You won't have to handle fragile media in the future and can instead use the digital copy. Please remember that digitization does not mean that you discard the original source material. Instead, the digital copy serves as a backup to reduce the handling of the original item and to make it easier to share images electronically via email and social media. You might also want to digitize images in which you no longer have the equipment needed to view them, such as with slides and negatives. Please know there are multiple ways to digitize photos, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we will focus on using a traditional flatbed scanner rather than handheld scanners or mounted professional quality cameras. Thank you, Scott, for sharing that snippet of the video. And then we'll get the presentation back up here. Okay, great. In addition to the video tutorials, I want to quickly show you some other online resources you may not have noticed on the website. There are several topics, as you can see on your screen. There's catalogs for ordering archival supplies, finding aid, which refers to the ACWR collection finding aid, free guides, which are links to guides used by various trusted institutions, webinar, which is a list of organizations that host webinars, local resources, which is a partial list of some other archival associations, published resources, which is a list of some books of interest, records management, where you'll find the ACWR records management document from the year 2000, and Women Religious Resource, where you can find the latest edition of the ACWR Women Religious Resource Directory. We are aware that some of these categories are in need of updating, so that will be another upcoming project for us post-conference. Next slide, please. Again, you can access these resources by hovering your mouse over that same resources option across the top of the website. The drop-down menu will appear, and you can move your mouse to list of resources and then see what the various topics are. Next slide, please. I won't show you screenshots of all the resources, but here's the catalog section, for example, and you'll see it's a list of trusted archival supply vendors. As I said, we hope to update these resources in the coming months, but some of you might still find the information helpful until then. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to talk briefly about the ACWR listserv. This is perhaps the one member resource I personally rely on the most. Many of you are probably already familiar with listservs, but if you're new to ACWR or listservs in general, a listserv is an electronic group mailing list. We can send an email message to a central email address overseen by ACWR, and then our messages are distributed to all members. I have sent countless requests to the list asking for help with topics such as find a sister request. I had one that was deaccessioning objects that were going to be gifted to a deceased sister's relative. If you are an ACWR member, you are automatically signed up to the listserv when you join. But if you feel you should be receiving emails and you are not, please contact Veronica Buchanan. Her email address is shown here on the slide, and most of the ACWR communication you receive via email also come from her. Next slide, please. There is such a wide variety of topics that members discuss via the listserv. Here's a sampling of some recent conversations. Just yesterday, a member wanted to warn everyone of an unpleasant situation they were in. Someone had shut off their archive's dehumidification system from the outside, causing mold to start forming on books. They wanted to warn everyone to keep an eye on their facility and to put locks on shut-off valves. Then we had a request looking for a sister. Many of us receive requests to locate sisters that might not be members of our community. And when that happens, we can ask the membership via the listserv if they recognize the name or the ministry of the person in question. And if they can, then we can pass the request on to them, which helps our patrons. Lastly, this topic is a post that I put on the listserv about replacing PDF content on the website. The congregation I work for is designing a new website, and they asked me to reformat our policies and forms that are currently in PDF form into a more mobile-friendly version. So I was curious to know what others were doing to help me make an informed decision. Every time I post to the group, I always receive helpful and thought-provoking responses. Next slide, please. There is some listserv etiquette you should be aware of, and you can find that information on the ACWR website. From the main page, look for the resources section again across the top. When you hover your mouse over the word resources and that drop-down menu appears, look at the last option, which is ACWR listserv. Click on that. Next slide, please. Here's what the screen looks like when you click on listserv. There are very clear instructions on how to join the listserv if you are not already a member, how to unsubscribe, and how to reply to a post. Again, I highly recommend the listserv. It's such a valuable resource for sharing information, soliciting help, and discussing other relevant topics. We hope to hear more from you on the listserv. Next slide, please. That concludes my portion of the presentation on ACWR web resources. Feel free to contact me if you have further questions, and perhaps you'll consider following the Congregational Facebook page for the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, particularly our weekly Throwback Thursday posts, which the archives writes. And I will next turn it over to Lisa and Sarah. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Catherine. That was so interesting. It was an excellent tour of our own super rich resources. And I can't wait to see some of those videos that have been added that I have not yet seen. Okay, next is Sarah Cantor. Sarah's going to talk to us about the ACWR mentoring program, which is a great follow-up to the other two talks. Sarah's been the director of archives for the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary in Lake Oswego, Oregon, since 2006. She's been involved with ACWR's mentoring program since 2015 and has served as a museum and archives mentor for the Oregon Heritage Commission since 2010. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. Gonna switch to me? Okay. All right, so as Lisa said, I work for the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary, and I am part of the U.S. Ontario province for the Sisters. I personally find that mentoring is one of the most fulfilling parts of the job that I do, which is why I like to keep doing it. It is a lot more low tech than the other two speakers have talked about in terms of what ACWR does, but technology has added a lot more tools for us recently in terms of being able to expand our reach for mentoring. Next slide, please. So ACWR has a long history of supporting new members through its mentoring program. For many years, this program was conducted primarily in person when people in the same geographic region could be matched up. Not all of us reside near other members, so phone and email was also offered as a way to connect. Regardless, the goal has consistently been the same: to provide helpful guidance that is appropriate to the skill level of the person needing assistance, and to create an ongoing connection if further help is needed. Next slide, please. So as Catherine just pointed out, the ACWR listserv is a great tool to get a wide variety of responses to questions of all types. And I have had Zoom meetings a few times to discuss responses that I have sent to regarding certain questions that were answered. So it has hooked into a mentoring kind of way as well. But sometimes it's really that one-on-one kind of help and support that is what is needed. Next slide, please. Having a mentor is a free service that ACWR offers its members. The people who volunteer as members are doing this out of the kindness of their heart to take their time to help you. Help can be as simple as one email exchange, or it might continue with regular meetings for longer projects. Currently, we have a group of excellent mentors with many years of experience in archives who are happy to help you. And on the screen, you will see how to request a mentor. There's a form on the website, and you can also email Veronica in the office. Next slide, please. So during COVID, we expanded our toolkit to use online programs like Zoom and FaceTime to connect members with other members needing support. It turned out to be an excellent way to bring together people who are geographically disparate, but who can assist with a variety of issues. For example, the cohort pictured here has been meeting since summer of 2020. Sister Rachel's community wanted information on how to transition to a lay archivist. And I got asked to meet with Rachel because I was my province's first lay archivist. But I brought in Sister Eleanor because she has direct experience hiring lay staff and transitioning from overseeing the archives herself. Having both of us work with Rachel has enriched our conversations in ways I could have never done just on my own. Zoom allows us to meet periodically as Rachel needs in order to move her project forward. As she said, The basic thing she gets from our meetings is the connection. And our cohort has created a supportive and affirming group that is helpful and enjoyable for all of us. Next slide, please. No matter how offbeat your question, we can probably find someone in the membership who has experienced something similar. New members who are also new to archives should not hesitate to contact the office to ask for help. Above is a list of some of the specific areas where current mentors have experience to share. And you can see that is working with beginning archivists, writing community histories and researching slave ownership, merging and consolidating archives or working with communities moving to completion, moving archives and designing spaces, arranging, describing, preparing finding aids and using databases, management of archives, budgeting and handling personnel, working with photographs and AV materials, digitizing materials and working with born digital collections, implementing oral history programs, storing, displaying, and interpreting objects, and answering reference requests. And really, this is just a general list. As we can see from the listserv, many members have lots of experience, even if the question is very strange. And it's fun. That makes it fun and interesting for everybody. Next slide, please. Starting in October, we will be piloting an open conversation time where members, particularly new archivists, can gather via Zoom to share concerns and questions. Mentors will facilitate and will answer questions that arise. The intention is that this event would happen regularly and would be an opportunity for connection and support. It will complement the programs that Veronica already sets up that have specific themes and speakers. This one is designed just to be more of a, as Lisa said, a coffee clatch kind of experience. So you could talk about whatever you want to. Watch your email for a sign up from Veronica in the office. Obviously, as in the picture above, it would be more fun to be together in person, and many of us might be really zoomed out. But at the same time, the technology offers a lot of us in far-flung places the chance to connect between the triennial meetings, which has really been an unexpected gift of this COVID time. Next slide, please. In conclusion, there are many ways that ACWR can offer mentoring and support via technology. There is no reason for any of you to be like the three sisters standing in isolation on the map. We hope you will take advantage of what we offer when you have questions or just want to talk over an idea. We would welcome your input about other ways ACWR's mentoring program can support you in your work. Feel free to reach out to me with your thoughts and ideas at the email address on the next page. Next page, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all three of you. We are open and available for comments and feedback and questions. I'm looking through the chat. So why don't people think about lining up their questions, and you can feel free to unmute yourselves. But first, let me cover the few that are in here. First was, I think this is to Scott. Do you have any observations about the time of the day of the post affecting your views?
I know that there are people who do. I admit there are studies, there's research on this. They say that early morning is the best time. Again, I haven't read any. I sort of take the words of some of our communications department people on that one. Typically, I try and post things in the morning before 9, 10 o'clock. I don't always hold fast to that rule, but that's what I try and aim for. And I will say, that's probably true. The stuff that gets posted in the afternoon probably does get slightly less views.
Okay. Here's a question for Sarah. Can the mentoring committee also help lay archivists that are new to religious archives by perhaps providing a guide to Catholic terms or common women religious vocabulary?
That's a great idea, Casey. Yes, that could certainly happen. I know in our community, we have worked up something to give to our new employees so that to help them a little bit with common terms that we use. And I think that is absolutely something that mentors could assist with just generally anyway, helping people transition. Because as we all know, if we've come from the outside, it is a unique little niche of archives.
And I'll jump in and also say that we have on hand a printed copy of the ACDA thesaurus, which has always, which comes in handy, not all the time, but it often does come in handy in determining what language we are going to use when we are labeling things in our archives, such as house chronicles and annals and such. Let's see. A question from Genevieve to Scott and perhaps to you all. Is there a reason you don't use Instagram? Because it might appeal to a younger audience.
Yeah, I saw that comment you made there, and I sort of went, yeah, that's probably right. I have not started an Instagram for the community because, number one, that's one I'm less familiar with the rhythms of. And because using Facebook is a little bit of a legacy from when communications first started making the archives do social media type posts. But that's absolutely a really good idea, and it's something that we should really think about.
Yeah.
Could I jump in?
Yeah.
With a Instagram related reply? I'm not the one that is in charge of our social media accounts. I just submit these throwback posts. Our communications person does put them on the Instagram page as well. And I don't know if Instagram gives you analytics for views or not. I don't see any of those type of analytics. I only see the actual likes. And we tend to get more likes on Facebook than Instagram currently. I think most of our audience is not younger, but it would be great to change that. But I just want you to know, our congregation, Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, does do Facebook and Instagram.
Let's jump to Veronica, who's got her hand up.
Yes, I was actually headed up for this question. I don't know if you can see me, but I was just going to say our communications team with the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati, they actually do a 3-tiered approach. So they have, if they do a post, it's put through on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, some form of it. But they really like Instagram for their photo-based. You know, obviously that's the platform is photo-based, but sometimes they'll do a separate campaign of images just for Instagram. And someone shared in the chat that you can get stats through a business profile, but at our annual advisory meeting with the communications team, they just give us the average likes, and that's helpful to know. It's much smaller, as Catherine was saying, compared with Facebook, but it's still important to capture that younger audience. And we have seen it kind of take off in some places with our Future of Charity program with the Federation and some of our younger members.
And especially as the alumni groups tends to shift just the way that Catholic sisterhoods have shifted over the last couple decades. That's probably, a lot of them are going to be a lot more of those younger lay service groups rather than alumni of a school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got one more question that we haven't discussed yet that came into the chat. Casey, to probably to Scott again, but to all of you. Can you delve into how social media can serve as an access point to the archives for the public? Can you speak to how you might utilize contemporary events or issues to make more engaging posts?
Definitely, if there's something contemporary that I think I can do, or something, you know, related to immediate something happening in the world, in the news, I try and go for it. To a certain extent, you know how like a newspaper or a news broadcast, they have their first half-hour programming for the day, like Queen Elizabeth dies, all ready to go. All they need to do is plug in the date and the cause of death. There's certain of those type of things that we have ready to go right now. Just sort of need to plug in the date. Other times it's you can't plan for it because you don't know it's going to happen. I know that at one point, right after The Last Dance aired last year, which was the big 10-part documentary on Michael Jordan, it's no, throw up the picture of a sister with Michael Jordan immediately. Do that. That's the right one to do right now. But there was also, there was also recently a natural disaster in Haiti, and I went searching for photos. I know that there's a collection of work the sisters did in Haiti, and because it was all, they were fairly recent photos, you know, you had to consider some privacy concerns. You had to do things like make sure that the photos had the right amount of metadata so you knew who everybody was, a common problem. So as much as I tried, I wasn't able to go and put one up for that, which was kind of unfortunate. So Casey, I don't know exactly if that answered your question or not. Yes, we try. Yes, try to do that. Try and be contemporary. Sometimes it can be hard. I think that's the answer.
For the Sisters of St. Joseph, I want to point out that I really haven't focused on any contemporary events. I feel that I'm doing more of the throwback type of stuff, and I usually just get one post a week. The congregation itself, I think, does a good job of addressing contemporary issues. But there were two things I want to mention on Casey's question. In terms of at least relating to what's going on, I have been putting together, and it's a work in progress. I have a list of those daily themes and monthly themes. So when you hear like it's National Ice Cream Day or it's National Classical Musical Month or whatever. So I've been putting a list together of those as I find out about them, and ones that I feel are relevant to pictures we might have in the community. And I try to tie in our Throwback Thursday post to that. So one great resource, I'll put it in the chat after I finish talking. I don't want to screw up while I'm typing it, but there's a website called nationaltoday.com that you can find some of these at. And there's other websites too, but if you wanted to do something similar, you could go to that website. And then in terms of getting like the public more interested in the archives, that's kind of hard to do, but every October is Ask an Archivist month. You might be aware of that initiative. Gosh, is that ALA, I forget, or SAA that does that? So we do an interactive Ask an Archivist post where we let people know Ask an Archivist Day is coming up and that they should submit their questions in the comment box. And then after about a week, I randomly draw a name, if there's enough to choose from, of a person, and they're the winner. And then I do a video response to their question where I'm actually in the archives on video answering their question. And then that gets posted for Ask an Archivist Day. And those type of posts, I think I've only done it twice now because I've only been here a few years, but those tend to be more interactive. We'll get a lot of questions on that particular post. And most of the time, they're questions coming from our outside affiliates and people who are interested. So not sisters, not staff members. So I found that has been a little bit helpful in engaging that greater, broader community. It's not perfect, but it's just a small thing I can do so that they are aware of the archives and they know who I am and these are what archives look like, that type of thing. So hope that helps. And I'm going to put that link into the chat now.
And just as a branching off of special months, October is also Fire Safety Month. So any picture of a sister with next to a fire truck or with a firefighter, good idea.
Okay. All right.
Lisa, I have my hand raised. I was hoping you could share a bit about the project you've been working on to create a list of all of the major milestones or anniversaries within the communities.
Well, that's a little bit in the dream stage because we've still been figuring out the style for our database. But yes, I would like to see a date-based database. It started as a spreadsheet that just is all of our major milestones across the 7 congregations so that we can actually be working with the development department as a service to them to let them know in the next year, these will be the major milestones that you might want to consider celebrating. And then for us, of course, within the archives, how we can use that to promote things on social media and using various outreach. So that's what I have to say about that. I have a quick question for Sarah. I just wanted to ask about the mentoring committee. If I had a question, could I come to you and not create a long-term relationship? Do I have to fear that I'm getting committed to a long-term relationship with the mentoring committee? Or could I come to you with questions and maybe just meet just like once?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, most of the people that I've worked with, it's usually been just a one-time thing. Having, I think, longer relationships is not the norm. But is a nice benefit if it happens. But absolutely, it can be one quick email and it's handled by email and snap, you're done.
One thing I'll say about the mentoring committee and the members of it that I think is so important for all of us to know is that there is no question that's silly. There is no question that does not need to be asked. You know, that we should all feel comfortable bringing it to the mentoring committee and to the listserv and trust that we're all going to answer. And not judge where we all are with our professional development and knowledge of archives. We're here to help each other. And you know, the goal in the end is to preserve our history together. Any other questions from the floor today? I see that our time, where are we at? Oh, we have, well, no, we actually have about 5 more minutes if we have any other questions. I will say that Leo out on the West Coast, I know he's out in California with the CSJs. He wanted to know, for communities on the West Coast, should we be posting items like Throwback Thursdays earlier to get more views? I'm not sure if we answered this already or not.
That's one where I would look at your stats. See, you can go and click a few buttons along the left-hand side and see where your top places are. If they're concentrated along the West Coast, I would say maybe you're okay following West Coast time. If they're a little bit more spread around, you might want to post a little bit earlier. I know that sometimes the cities that you see can be kind of surprising. One of our top cities is Manila, the Philippines. I don't know why.
Laura Grove is asking about using hashtags.
I usually write the first draft and communications goes and cleans it up a little bit. Sometimes they add hashtags, sometimes they don't. I don't know. I have no strong feelings one way or the other on it. I think that depends too on a lot of what platform you use. You know, if you use Twitter, you better have a hashtag. Facebook, a little bit less important. The page is more important than the hashtag, but Twitter, you better have a hashtag.
Veronica, is your hand up again?
Yeah.
Oh, great. No, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say, in terms of hashtags, the only time I think our communications team uses it across all the platforms, I believe it's the Hilton Foundation. They usually do an annual campaign that I can't remember what this one is this year, but it was like Mercy, the Year of Mercy was one of the themes, and they will do the hashtag for that thematic series. But that's about the only thing that comes to mind.
I think on a personal caveat, I'll just say, you know, I am of a certain age where I kind of understand hashtags, but I also kind of don't. And I'm not going to really, you know, for those of us who don't really understand them or how to apply them, I think that's just absolutely fine. It isn't necessarily our job to do it. And if we have a social communications person, we do on staff here at the CSJs. I don't necessarily have to learn it all myself. But again, that's what our mentoring committee is here for, et cetera, et cetera. And oh, I know what I was going to ask. So if I'm an archivist and I am not, and I'm thinking about how to begin doing some social media just from the very bottom up, like I might want to make a presence for myself. What would be the first thing that you three might suggest that I might do? Like create a Facebook profile, or maybe just participate in the ACWR photo requests?
I I would definitely participate in the ACWR photo requests.
Okay.
But I would make sure to know what your goal is at the end of it. Are you looking to go and build community to assist your community? Are you looking to go and actively try and get researchers? Really make sure you know what goal you're aiming for. Because if you're looking to just engage the archives with the rest of your community, then you might want, then talk with somebody to make sure you know how many of your sisters are on Facebook before you make that decision. Or if having a piece in a community newsletter, or if it's a digital community newsletter, if you can link to it. Know what your goal is and know who you're trying to court first.
Thanks, Scott. Hello, dear ones. Anybody else have anything else to ask or comment? Oh, there's a question. Has anyone else felt reluctance on the part of leadership in sharing photos publicly? That's a good question. I see Dee nodding.
I can speak to this briefly, but I have to not say a lot. In one of these posts that I was going to do, that was like a daily theme or weekly theme, there was somebody pictured in the post, in the photo, I mean, that that there was some controversy about. That's all I can say. And
Okay.
I checked with the powers that be to see whether or not they thought I should go with that photo, and they told me not to. So that would be one case where a particular photo wasn't used. So I just, put that one aside and found something else that worked with the theme.
Lisa, this is Daughters of Charity Prescott, and I'm sure things have changed quite a bit. When the archive started a Facebook page, we had a lot of problems selling it to the community because some of the sisters were afraid of being online completely. Now, remember, this was many years ago, about 10 years ago. They were afraid of being online, and they were afraid if their pictures were online, they could have their identities stolen. So we calmed people down to understand that that wasn't that. But what we actually had to do was, in addition to posting things on Facebook, we would have to give it to the communicator, who would then post it on the weekly, Scott, what's it called? The weekly publication that goes out to all the daughters.
The link.
The link. Okay, so they would publish our Facebook post on the link. I hope things have loosened up quite a bit now, because we proved that the Facebook page was quite helpful, and we also had a Twitter account, which wasn't as helpful. But we did know that frequently, if a sister were still alive and identifiable in a picture, we would ask her permission to post the picture. And we also got away from orphans and kids and things like that. But with a sister's permission, it was fine. But yes, at the beginning, and you might be aware that there might be some kickback at first or pushback at first, but I think those social media platforms have demonstrated a positive effect.
Okay.
And just jumping off of that, and even a few of the comments that are popping up here, yes, you do have to know what the limits are and what the limits should be. There's a comment here mentions that former members, probably avoid posting photos of them on Facebook or any social media.
I know we're running short on time. Can I quickly address the question about archiving the social media post?
Yes.
Our congregation is currently not archiving anything web related. The archivist and the communicators talked about this, and we decided that the communicators wanted to do that. That would be their responsibility. But I do something else instead. I'm going to try sharing my screen really quick. What I do is I have a quarterly newsletter that I put out called Snapshots in Time. This is the newest version that just came out. And what I do is it's like I said, it's quarterly, every 3 months. So I pick the 9, what I think are maybe the best or more interesting images, and then I put them in newsletter form. And then this is sent out to the sisters and associates of the congregation. And the link is usually also posted on the Facebook, so anyone can go and view this newsletter. And then I'll say in here, like Classical Musical Month, this one was shared for that. World Humanitarian Day in August. So I kind of have an archive of social media posts, but not a complete one.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let me just make sure. Oh yeah, we did archiving social media posts. Okay, I think that's it. Does anybody have any other questions here before we take a quick break? Welcome back to our ACWR conference. My watch is a little slow, so I'm a couple minutes late according to my computer clock, so I apologize for that. Again, I'm Lisa Gibbon, and I'm going to be introducing people today. Next up is Mary Grace Kosta. She's going to talk to us. The topic of her presentation is Managing Digital Donations. Mary Grace Kosta is the Congregational Archivist for the Sisters of St. Joseph in Canada. She obtained her Master's in Linguistics from the University of Calgary and worked for 25 years as a linguist, museum registrar, government manager, and teacher. She then obtained her MLIS with a specialization in archives from the University of Western Ontario and has worked for the past 9 years as the Congregational Archivist for the Sisters of St. Joseph in Canada. And I'll also add that, as we all know, she's the most recent recipient of the Sister M. Plugling Award. So, to introduce her presentation, today it's going to focus on donations of born digital materials. Issues to be covered include prioritizing digital donations, managing them, preserving and sharing them, including what is required from donors and what to include on donation forms. Mary Grace will also explain her congregational digital preservation workflow and will share her congregation digital preservation and electronic records policies with us. So great, Mary Grace, let's see if you are on the screen. Can you unmute yourself, please?
I am unmuted.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi.
Way.
Can you see me?
I sure can.
Good.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Should I share my screen now?
I am ready for you to share your screen and take it away. Everybody, Mary Grace Kosta.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So I acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Lenape, and Hunyotaag, and pay my respects to elders past and present. So just to review what Lisa already said, this presentation will focus on donations and transfers of born digital materials. I actually changed the title because I decided to include transfers as well as donations because I think we probably deal with both a lot. I will cover issues with digital materials, how to prioritize and manage digital deposits, preserving and sharing digital material, what is required from depositors, and what to include on donor forms and in policy. I will also briefly describe a digital preservation workflow. All of our digital preservation and electronic records policies are available in our Archives Policy Manual, which has a Creative Commons license on it, and you can download it from our website. I put a link to the website in the chat box. I will exclude from discussion digital items that are created from digitization of analog material. So what are born digital materials? These include digital photographs, electronic records such as documents in word processing formats, email, databases, spreadsheets, presentations just like this PowerPoint presentation today, websites and social media, computer-aided design files, those are also known as CAD files, GIS files, so Geographic Information System files, digital art, and digital media publications. So if you could just take a few minutes and think about these questions. We're not going to do a poll or anything, but I just wanted you to read through the questions and just think to yourself what your answers are. Okay, so where are you at? Did you answer yes to question 1? I know that I do answer yes to that question. In our archives, most of our new acquisitions now are born digital, actually. Did you answer no to any of the other questions? I'm hoping that this presentation will turn some of your no's into yeses. So you may encounter some issues with digital deposits to your archive. You can get digital material on all sorts of media: floppy disks, hard drives, USB sticks, CDs, DVDs, tape, or via a server download. You may receive broken media with digital content on it. The content may have deteriorated due to bit rot, and I will explain what bit rot is in a little while. The content may not be able to be read or rendered correctly due to media, hardware, or software obsolescence. You may not know how to ensure the authenticity of the digital content. You may find unintentionally retained drafts, system files, or blank content. If you image a disk, and I will explain what imaging a disk is later on, if you image a disk, you may recover deleted files. The content may contain sensitive, private, legally protected, or illegal material. You may not know whether the digital materials are considered published and who holds the rights. And you may not know whether the original software license was transferred when the software was inherited from the depositor. So lots of issues with digital records. So how do you prioritize digital deposits that you receive? You need to think about a lot of things. So think about, what do you have in terms of institutional support, resources, and technology? You can think of institutional support, resources, and technology like a three-legged stool. You need all 3 legs for the stool to stand up and work. You also need to think about the digital material itself, the file formats, the volume of the data, the condition, the feasibility of transfer, and what migration is needed. Think about whether the material may need to be dealt with sooner because it may not be able to be accessed in time. Think about whether, because of the danger of media degradation, unstable media needs to be prioritized. Think about the value and importance of the material based on your collection policy. Think about whether the material is already available in the analog materials in an existing collection. And think about whether the archive, your archive, holds copyright on the material. So for example, if you got some media in that was unstable, you'd probably want to deal with that before you got some media in that you're still trying to find out about who holds copyright on. So there's lots of things to think about when you're appraising and prioritizing digital deposits. So what information do you need about the digital deposit? You need to know what will be coming to the archive, including subject content, number of files, file formats, the size of the content, the software used, and whether any of the files are encrypted. You need to know how the digital material is coming to the archives. Will it be by disk imaging that you do in person? Or will it be coming in on removable physical media like a USB stick? Or will it be coming in through a file transfer protocol, transfer through a server? What kind of physical media will be used? Will a floppy disk be used, or a CD, or a DVD, or an external drive, or a flash drive, or an SD card? You can get digital deposits on any of those media. Think about what is the content and context of the materials. You need that information. You need to know who created the content, and is there any content from other creators? You need to know how the files are organized, versioned, and named. You need to know, will the depositor provide the hardware and/or the software needed to read the digital materials? You need to know if there's any private or sensitive data that will need to be embargoed. You need to know whether there'll be future accruals, and you need to know whether the deposit is coming across an international border. So some of the things you need to know for digital material, you also need to know for analog records, like what is the content and context of the materials. But some of it is unique to digital materials, what you need to know, such as what are the file formats, what software was used, is there any encryption, and so on. So how can your donor forms and policy about internal transfers help you? If you have them, these can provide, or these can give sole ownership to the archive for the digital content. They can ensure the depositor does not give away copies of digital materials or keep copies of digital materials so that you will have the originals. They can transfer copyright to the archive if the depositor does hold copyright, or they can help you negotiate licenses. Donor forms and policy can also specify what digital content is included in the deposit, can give rights to the archive to preserve the digital material, including to alter, copy, move, or store the data in multiple locations, can state what time-limited access restrictions will be put in place, can provide clarity on when the transfer process is complete, can spell out what level of preservation will be provided for the deposit, can list file formats that the archive supports, can clarify what metadata the depositor should supply, for example, captions on photographs, and can explain how access will be provided to researchers. So your donor forms and policy about internal transfers can clarify all of these matters. You do need policies and procedures for born digital material that refer to collection development, access restrictions, preservation, and disposal of digital media and files. The basic procedures are, first, manage digital materials from creation. Try to work with depositors when possible to provide advice on weeding, organizing, and naming files, to recommend formats and media to use, and to acquire their hardware and software if needed. Next, document what you do. For example, document any preservation actions you take. Make an inventory of your digital materials. Assess the formats and media stability of your digital materials. Policy can really help. You should decide on standard open formats to support. For example, in our archive, we support PDF-A format for documents, text documents. We support WARC format for website files. We support TIFF format for image files and WAVE format for audio files. You should decide whether you will keep the physical media, such as floppy disks, even if you can't read them or after you have ingested the digital content from them. And this can be stated in your policy. And your policy should have provisions to return the media to the depositor or let the depositor know what you will do with it. Besides donations, you may have organization internal electronic records transfers. These are records transferred under a records retention and disposal schedule. Some guidance on internal transfers will be provided now. First, use an internal FTP service or download from a cloud Dropbox. Within your organization, don't transfer files as email attachments because of security and size issues. Keep your archive drive offline with an off-site backup of that drive. Restrict access to your archive staff for opening, moving, copying, and deleting transferred files. Don't share passwords outside archive staff. Ensure that no password encrypted or zipped files are transferred. Notify the depositor when the transfer is complete, and also notify the depositor that records can be purged from their end when the archives processing is complete, because you don't want to end up with duplicates in the archives and duplicates with the original depositor. That just goes against your records retention and disposal schedule. So where should you start? Even before starting a digital preservation workflow, you can inventory all the physical media holding digital material in your collections, such as USB sticks, floppy disks, CDs, and so forth. Remove the physical media with the digital content from the collection, but keep the original order by using a separation sheet. Assign a unique identifier to each physical item. Record the location, unique identifier, collection title, media type, capacity, label information, anything known about the hardware, operating system, and software used to create the files, and the condition. Count the number of each media type, indicating the maximum capacity of each media type, and calculate the maximum amount of data on each medium, and then calculate the overall total for the collection. Return the physical media to the collection and add a summary about the media to the accession record in Finding Aid. You can do all of this without opening the files on the physical media. So what do you need to preserve and share digital items? Digital materials are made of layers. The content is in the code layer, while the software is a layer that allows the content to be rendered, to be able to be viewed. You can preserve the code, the format, and the fonts. You may need things to do this. You may need hardware, such as a write blocker, and I'll talk about that later, 3.5 inch and 5.25 inch floppy disk drives and controller cards, CD and DVD players, a microcard reader, and various connection ports to connect the computer to storage devices. And open source software tools such as Data Accessioner, Bagger, and Fixity. And data storage with multiple copies stored in different places. Your options include a computer with an external hard drive, a hard drive with a network, different networks in different regions, and or a computer with a cloud server. And you may need a repository to provide access. So this is a searchable database with links to network storage, such as DSpace, archive space, or access to memory. So what threats do we face with the preservation of digital materials? Just like mold and insects can damage paper and print photographs, there are threats to digital materials. These include media obsolescence. So for example, who uses a floppy disk nowadays? Media failure or decay. And this is bit rot. So I'll explain what bit rot is now. Bit rot is the slow loss of digital data over time as files sit on a drive and bits are flipped or dropped. Human error. So people can alter or delete digital files. Natural disaster, such as flood, fire, and power failures. File format obsolescence. So for example, not many people use WordPerfect anymore, and it can be difficult to open and read a WordPerfect file. And viruses and software bugs are also threats that we are all familiar with. Unfortunately, the lifespans of media used to house digital material are pretty short compared to the lifespans of analog materials like paper and print photographs. Even media that claims to be long-lasting, like archival gold CDs, will have issues because optical drives are not being manufactured much these days. And we don't really know how long an archival CD will last anyway. So what can we do? We manage the risks. We can have policy in place that ensures the security of the archive. We can undertake disaster planning, and we can use digital preservation strategies. There are three digital preservation strategies. The first is refreshing. Refreshing can be done in two ways: copying from one media to another, such as from a floppy disk to a CD, or copying to the same media, such as from an old backup drive to a new backup drive. The second is migration. Migration means changing the version, such as updating Microsoft Word 2010 to Word 2013. Or it can mean changing the format, a process which is known as normalization, such as converting a WordPerfect file to a Microsoft Word file. In our archives, we normalize text documents to PDF-A format, which is PDF archival format. The third strategy is emulation. Emulation is actually rebuilding software and hardware so you can run old programs on new computers, like running Pac-Man on a Windows 10 system. So let's talk about preservation actions. On this slide are the most important preservation actions to take. First, decide to manage digital records as soon as they are received. So make the decision to do something. Next, develop policy. Institutional commitment is critical. Think of digital preservation as the three-legged stool we mentioned earlier. It needs institutional support, resources, and technology. Carry out preservation actions and document what you do. Make an inventory. Choose to use open, not proprietary formats as much as possible. And the reason for that is because open source formats or open formats, the code is available. So in the future, you would be able to build a reader for any digital material that was created using that particular format. And you would be able to view it down the road. So open formats are the ones to choose, not proprietary formats. And this is something to think about when you do digitization, but I'm not going to go into digitization today, but choose open formats as much as possible. Decide what formats you will support. You don't need to keep all different kinds of file formats. You can normalize files to certain formats. Keep more than one copy in multiple locations. Follow the 3-2-1 rule. 3 copies on 2 types of storage media with 1 copy stored off-site. And check your data in storage to make sure there is no bit rot. Refresh your storage media. For example, you could replace your hard drive every 5 years. The Open Archival Information System model was developed by NASA and is a conceptual model for digital preservation workflow and systems. Born digital records that are deposited with the archive are known as a Submission Information Package, or SIP. The SIP is taken into the digital preservation system through ingest. Ingest adds preservation metadata to the SIP to create an archival information package, or AIP, which goes into long-term storage. This is also known as the master copy. A dissemination information package, or DIP, is derived from the AIP and is used as a working copy and to provide access. It can be the same as the AIP or an alternate version, such as a lower resolution copy. This is also known as the access copy. There are 2 main activities in the Open Archival Information System: administration, which includes storage, maintenance, and backup, and preservation planning, which includes monitoring and determining when preservation actions are needed, as well as taking materials into the preservation system and creating AIPs and DIPs. So this is the model underpinning all of our digital preservation work. This National Digital Stewardship Alliance, or NDSA chart, shows the different levels you can achieve for digital preservation. What matters is that you do something. You can start by inventorying your physical media, as we discussed earlier. Then you can inventory what is on your computer. Create an inventory of digital materials with file names, sizes, and formats. Move your digital materials to a single drive. Create 2 folders, one for AIPs, or master copies, and one for DIPs, or access copies. Be careful not to open the master copies or AIPs, because this can cause accidental alteration or deletion. You will use the access copies or DIPs to arrange, describe, and provide access. Accession the AIPs. Run weekly and monthly backups on the AIPs. Run integrity checks on the AIPs. There is software that will scan for bit rot and let you know which files are corrupted. And when you find a corrupted file, you can replace it from your backup file. And lastly, refresh all your drives regularly. So these are all important steps to follow as you work your way through the different levels of preservation as defined by the National Digital Stewardship Alliance. And I did send out on the ACWR listserv a link to the to register for the upcoming NDSA conference. It's really an excellent thing to do. You can also start by making policy. Policy is really important. Our Archives Policy Manual is available for download from our website. You're welcome to it. This slide shows the policies that we have in that manual that are related to digital material. And I put the link in the chat if you want to go and download the manual. Also, start by deciding what file formats you will support. Choose file formats that are widely adopted, for which specifications are in the public domain and that are interoperable. Maintain fewer formats to reduce your work sustaining formats over time. You can visit this Library of Congress site to get more information on sustainable file formats. On the slide, I have noted the file formats that our archive supports. So what are the basic steps in a digital preservation workflow? This is a quick bird's eye view, and I will go into more detail a bit later. Appraisal, accessioning, following an open archival information system workflow, which means getting the stuff off the media it came in on or downloading it from a server, then running checksums, then quarantining the digital material in an offline, not internet connected drive and checking for viruses, then ingesting the SIP or a submission information package into the digital preservation system, creating an APE or archival information package and a DIP or dissemination information package, then moving the APE to long-term storage and running integrity checks on it. Then arranging and describing using the DIP, and finally providing access. And just a note about checksums. Checksums are algorithms that generate a sequence of code, which is called a hash value, that you can compare each time you run the algorithm again to see whether a file has changed. So if you run the checksum on a file and then you move the file and run the checksum again, if there's any change in the hash value, you'll know there's been some change to the file due to your move. Because it's really important to use checksums throughout the digital preservation workflow. A checksum is like a digital fingerprint. You appraise digital materials as you would paper records. You don't have to keep it all. You will want to do the appraisal on the DIP or access copy to avoid altering the original, unless you know what the digital material is in advance. Check if the born digital materials contain confidential government files, legal case files, or personally identifiable information like medical records, social insurance, or credit card numbers. You will need to embargo these materials. There is software such as BitCurator that helps you find personally identifiable information in digital materials. And I'll just put a plug in right now for the Society of American Archivists Digital Archive Specialist courses. These are excellent courses to take to learn about digital preservation. And there are two upcoming courses called Digital Forensics. And those would be really great courses to register for, which will teach you how to use BitCurator, for example. So accessioning is the first step in a digital preservation workflow. You will need to use a write blocker to transfer digital material from physical media, such as USB sticks and floppy disks. A write blocker is hardware that you insert between the computer and the physical media. For an entire computer drive, you can make a disk image using software such as FTK Imager or Bit Curator. This makes a single file with a copy of all the files in the file system structure that were on the drive. You can use the disk image as an ape or master copy and extract files for access from it. Once you get the digital material onto your drive, you can accession it. During the accessioning process, you appraise records, you identify threats to long-term preservation, you assign an accession number, you gain administrative control, you document basic information about the digital material, you get copyright permission, and you document information about provenance, content, and context. So adding metadata is essential during the digital preservation workflow. There are 6 main types of metadata. Descriptive metadata gives contextual information, characterizes the nature of a resource, and supports its discovery. Some fields include title, creator, and subject. Structural metadata gives information about the relationship between the parts of a resource. Some fields include sequence and relation. So for example, the pages in a book would be indicated in a structural metadata field. Technical metadata gives technical information. Some fields include checksum and file format. Administrative metadata gives information needed to manage a resource. A field is provenance. And rights and preservation metadata can be grouped under administrative metadata. Rights metadata gives limits on the use of a resource and access restrictions. So some fields are copyright and license terms. And preservation metadata indicates actions taken to preserve a resource. Some fields include preservation events and preservation level. Now let's look at a simple digital preservation workflow in a bit more detail. And this is fairly similar to the workflow we use in our archives. First, you connect the physical media to a computer using a write blocker. So stick the USB stick into the write blocker, which is connected to your computer, or connect to the server, but don't open the files. Opening files can change them. Next, create a directory listing of files and folder structure. So get all the information about the file names, the sizes, the file extensions, and the dates. You can use software like Karen's directory printer to do this. You don't have to open the files to get this information. Then make an accession record, which you will continuously add to as you walk through this workflow. It will include ownership information, restrictions, administrative metadata, processing steps that you take, and whether you kept the original media with the digital files on it, like did you keep the USB stick? You can use a spreadsheet or a database for this step. Transfer the digital files through the write block connection or download from the server. You can use software like TerraCopy and create checksums for each file with TerraCopy. Be sure you don't open the files on the source media or on the server. Move the files or folders to an offline quarantine and run checksums again, because moving the files can alter them. Run a virus scan while the materials are in quarantine. If a virus is found, create a clean copy using antivirus software and document this action. We keep our digital files in quarantine for 30 days. Then use software like Droid to get information about file formats and duplicates. Arrange the files into Born Digital series or subseries within an existing collection. To do this step, you don't click the files open. You use the reports you created using Karen's directory printer and Droid. Next, create your ape or master copy using software like Data Accessioner, which will let you add metadata and move the files out of quarantine. Next, create your DIP or access copy by making a copy of the ape using software like TerraCopy. You can use the DIP to normalize formats if you need to. So if you need to convert a WordPerfect file to Microsoft Word file, you can do that using your DIP. Then add to the accession record with information about file names, format types, dates, size in gigabytes, the steps taken, and the location of the files using the report you got from running Droid. Then use software like Bagger to move your ape to long-term storage on a backed up drive and run integrity checks using software like Fixity. Update your finding aids, and finally, plan for how to scale up your storage, migrate your formats, and manage disasters, as well as how to provide access. So this is some of the free and open source software I mentioned that you can use for digital preservation. So all of this is open source software except for Karen's directory printer. Karen's directory printer is freeware. The difference is free software is software that you can get for free, but the code isn't available. Open source software is also software you can get for free, and the code is available. And why I say for free with quotation marks in my voice is because nothing's really free. You will need IT support if you don't have the technical skills, and there's a cost to IT support. And also, it's good to contribute back to the open source community by making donations to help support this incredible software that is so vital to our work as digital archivists. So, like I said, there are courses available to learn how to use this software. The Digital Preservation Coalition in the United Kingdom has a terrific course that you can take for free online. And also, there's the Society of American Archivists Digital Archive Specialist courses. And also, I'm offering a course through the Archives, the Archives Association of Canada in January, and we will be going through how to use some of this software in that course. So there's lots of ways to learn how to use it, or just download it and try it out. There is always documentation with the software as well. And finally, here are some open source content management systems that you can use to provide access to your digital content. So all of these, again, are open source. So that means they're free, but of course you will likely need IT support for installing them, and you may need the technical skills to understand and get help through the user forums. Although some of them are hosted, and you can actually pay for a hosting subscription and ongoing support. So for example, Access to Memory is hosted by Artifactual. And lastly, here are some references for my presentation. So just remember, I put the link to our Archives Policy Manual in the chat. So you're welcome to download that if you want. And I'm all done, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Mary Grace. Wow, that is a lot of information. Fortunately, we have quite a bit of time. All right, not quite a bit, but enough time for questions and comments. And I think that I think perhaps the Carmelite sisters look like they might have a question for us. I'm not sure. If anybody does have a question, you can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself, or you can put it into the chat. Until somebody says something, I will just mention that I have taken the DAS class, the Digital Archive Specialist course. I did it as an intensive one week, all in 1 week period at the University of Florida. It was really a wonderful experience for me. I think half of what they told me probably went in one ear and out the other, you know, my pretzel factory in my own head. But I found it to be invaluable. So I can carry on a conversation. I can't tell you that I'm always going to be the one making the digital archiving decisions in my particular archives, but I can carry on a very solid, informed conversation. And I think that's what you really helped me with today. You've made me really take a look at some of our practices. All right, so let me take a look at the chats.
I do see some questions there, Lisa. I could answer right now.
Okay. Can you repeat them out loud? Repeat
yeah.
the questions out loud for us, okay?
Yeah, Sister Virginia. So to make a PDF from a PDF, you can, you will probably need Adobe Acrobat to do that. And the question from Brother Dennis on TIFF. Yes, TIFF is an open format, which is a high resolution format. So we always create TIFF files when we do our digitization work because we want to have a non-compressed format with lots and lots of data in it. For our access copies, we convert our TIFFs to JPEGs, but it's our TIFFs that we store as our archival information packages out of our digitization process. So we do tie in digital preservation to our digitization work. But yes, they are big files for sure. You do need the drive space. You need the drive space to do any digital preservation work. So the best way to migrate WordPerfect to Microsoft Word. Yeah, I actually had to have a copy of WordPerfect to do this. So I don't know. I suppose you can also, I mean, you have to actually be able to, you could convert to a rich text format and then to Microsoft Word, or you can convert right from within WordPerfect to Microsoft Word. But yeah, it's you really try to get I would try to get your depositors to get away from using WordPerfect anymore and get them to start using a different word processing format, so, you know, such as Microsoft Word or Open Office or something. And is PDF different from PDF? Sister Virginia asked. Yes, it is. PDF is a good format for using for access. So, you know, you can have it up on your website if you have, like you look at our website, at any point you'll see we have a lot of documents, including our Archives Policy Manual up there as PDFs, because PDF is a format you can share. Anybody can open a PDF and view it, no matter whether they have an Apple operating system or a PC operating system. But PDF means PDF archival. So it is a unique format for long-term digital preservation, and you can actually run software on it like Vera PDF to make sure it is conforming to the PDF format. It contains all the information within the file you need to open it and view it in the future. So it is different from PDF. There's a question from Wichita. I do have a question. When working with digital media like PDFs or digital photos and videos, if you do not have a lot of digital storage space, is it recommended to create physical analog copies like DVDs, CDs, or photocopies? Yeah, I would really try to get your digital storage space boosted up. Remember I talked about the three-legged stool? You need institutional support, resources, and technology to do this right. Just printing stuff off is not ideal for long-term preservation of digital materials. I don't know if there's any other questions, Lisa. Oh, here's one from Casey.
Yep.
Right. I can see the chat questions, but I can't see the raised hand. So I'll leave those to you, Lisa.
Okay.
How do you recommend a loan arranger prioritize born digital archiving? In other words, what can we do at the baseline level to preserve born digital materials? So everything I've said today, because I am a loan arranger and we're doing all of this in our archives, it's totally possible. Start with doing your physical inventory of all your physical media, and then inventory what you have on your computer drives, and then get the training and just implement a digital preservation workflow using open source software.
I have a question also. You had talked about making a decision what types of media you're going to keep in perpetuity, regardless of whether or not you convert them. That was one of your decisions. And because we are going through floppy disks right now and just copying what's on them, but we're getting rid of the floppy disks because we don't want to have to ever worry about playing them back again. We're so glad we could get them to open up once. So tell us about those decisions, like what types of media would you keep in perpetuity versus ones you would not?
I think that's just really each archive's decision to make. As long as you have it in policy, it doesn't matter what you decide. You can decide to keep it or not to keep it. You have to have it in your policy about what you're gonna, and you need to have it in your donor forms too, if you're receiving donations from outside your institution, to let the donor know what you're gonna do with it, whether you're gonna return it to the donor or whether you're gonna dispose of it. So that's all important. If you are gonna dispose of it, securely dispose of it. You know, make sure you don't just toss it in a rubbish can. But I don't think it matters whether you decide to keep it or not, as long as you do ingest the digital content from it. You may want to keep it if it's like really especially unique, you know, like as a museum artifact kind of thing. But I don't really see the value you have. If you're keeping physical media like that, it has to be kept in controlled in environmentally controlled storage in order to preserve it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you said that you are sharing your, you shared in the chat for us already?
Yeah, I share our link to our archives processing manual. I'll just put it in there again one more time. There it is again. And yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember offhand the name of that Digital Preservation Coalition course. It's something like From Novice to Something, but it is free. And it's a really, really excellent course. So Casey, that could speak to your question about loan arrangers starting up. And if you could give me just half a sec, I can actually find it and put the link in the chat. If you just give me a sec, I can find the link to registering for that course from the Digital Preservation Coalition.
Go ahead. And again, I'll make another plug for SAA's DAS, Digital Archive Specialist Series. You can pick and choose certain ones. You don't have to take all 5 of them at once.
Yeah, and I'll make a plug also for the Association of Canadian Archivists course in January, which I am delivering. So you can also sign up for that. I'll send out information about that to the ACWR listserv. And there's the DPC course link right there in the chat now.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you, because you are such an articulate speaker and you presented in a way that's very graspable. It's very understandable. And I, for one, really appreciate that today.
I just want to say, don't be afraid of digital preservation. Honestly, don't be afraid of it. You can't break anything. And it's really lots of fun once you start learning it and getting into it. It's so much fun. I love it.
Okay. Whatever you say, sounds horrible, but I'll do it.
I think the important thing, Lisa, is that most of the I think the important thing to remember is that most of what we're going to be getting now going forward is going to be digital. I think it's just so much of what's coming at us. So it's so important to get on it and decide, just to start learning and doing stuff, I think. Oh, not seeing the link to the course. I'll try to put that in one more time. There it is again.
No, I'm not sure who.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I just direct messaged Veronica. Wait, let's try that again.
Yeah, do that.
Sorry about that. I think Veronica got that link twice. There we go.
Okay. Oh,
everyone see it?
Yep. Thank you so much. Well, that was fascinating. Veronica says thumbs up.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I'll put the link to our I see I put the link to our archives policy manual to Veronica too. Maybe Veronica can share that with everyone.
It's there. Holly posted it. Yeah, and I have also a copy of that myself, and I have referred to it many times. It's a great.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks,
all.
Lisa.
Great presentation. I hope we all got a little bit of something, or maybe a lot of something out of this today. I really appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, another 15 minutes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Again, I'm Lisa Gibbon from the Congregation of St. Joseph. And here at the ACWR conference for this week, we are going to wrap things up today with a presentation by Scott Keefer. Again, continuing with our technology. I'm looking for my session 3. Here it is. Scott Keefer currently serves as the Provincial Archivist of the Daughters of Charity of the province of St. Louise in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and he's been there since 2018. And it is St. Louis. I used to work for province of St. Louis, which is why I made that mistake before. So today he is going to tackle the email question, which we all have, and we all, I think we all kind of grapple with. He's going to share with us a workable plan that he created to accession and preserve emails with a limited budget or a limited level of IT support. He will also discuss the shortfalls of the plan, and he's going to seek input from you, the audience, for advice on the human relations aspects of his plan that have prevented it from being implemented within the archives. Thanks, Scott. Share with us.
Sure thing. Sharing, good? See everything?
Yes.
Fantastic. Hello all. This is going to be a little bit different of a presentation. In a lot of these talks, someone talks about a common question or problem in the field and the way they ended up solving it or innovating a solution at their institution. This is going to be different in the sense that this is a problem that we have not managed to solve here at the Daughters, and that we're still looking for some innovation and solution. I'm hoping that as much as I can offer advice on the how, the questions and comments and discussion afterward can lead me to getting it implemented on the human and relational front. This session is called the email question. My name is Scott Keefer. I am, as Lisa said, Archivist for the Daughters of Charity, province of St. Louise, Emmitsburg, Maryland. As I'm sure we are all aware, email is the new correspondence. In the present and future of archives, we are not going to have the folders and boxes of administrative correspondence that we did in the past. It's just not going to happen. It's not going back anytime soon. As much as it showed the workings of the provinces, the congregations, the institutions, that day is very quickly ending. I'm sure even that most of our correspondence, as in our being on this audience, is through email by this point. And we understand that retaining some portion of this, just like in the past in retainment of physical correspondence, is necessary to fully tell the portion of the community history that we're trying to tell. I had known that 2 of our provincial councilors of the daughters were leaving office in July of 2020. And I had discussed with my boss, who happened to be one of those councilors leaving, that I was interested in trying to do some experimentation and try a few things out to try and solve the email question to fully capture the modern correspondence of the councilor's work. I had taken a few classes and investigated some tools to go and make this happen. In March of 2020, we all went home at the start of COVID. Partial recreation of my workspace, not an actual picture, one I put together specially for this presentation. But over 3 days where I could be relatively uninterrupted, I used my own email account, my own work email account, to develop a procedure for accessioning and processing emails. I input a worst case scenario of 1 year's worth of emails that had no organization whatsoever. After this dump of nearly 1,000 emails, I was able to accession and process this down to a representative sampling of 65 emails to accurately reflect 1 year of my work in the archives. And yes, I know you can't see everything. You can only see the first 43. Down here, you can see it's 65. That's the 65. It's a screenshot. I'm not scrolling down. Come on. There are a few housekeeping things that are worth going over here. First off, and maybe most importantly, you can do this. I know that sometimes a project like this sounds really big, sounds really far outside of the technological realm, sounds very expensive and outside of the realm of our budgets. I assure you that you can do this. The tools are not overly complicated, and the procedures are fairly well set out by many, many people before us. You can do this. If you're looking to save a one-off piece of information that's in an email, you know, the one page type of thing, it probably is better off where you just sort of print it out and insert it into the folder as an interfile. You know, a quick little bit of information or a clarification that fits in somewhere else. However, resist that temptation to make your solution to just print everything out in an email account. I know that can be tempting sometimes when you're facing digital records, but again, you can do this, and really these are a media format that needs to stay in that media format. If you go and just try and print everything out and make that your large case scenario, you're going to lose things. You're going to lose metadata. You're going to lose to and froms. You're going to lose links, and you're going to lose attachments. The solution should not be just print them all out. Plus, you'll kill a lot of trees. Don't do that. My intention of this presentation is to give you a step-by-step of the process I devised as much as possible in as uncomplicated a way as possible. It will involve some tools. I'm trying to explain them as simply and plainly as I can. I'm not going to pretend it's perfect. I'm not going to pretend that this is the only solution. I'm not going to pretend that these are the only tools. This is the procedure that I worked out. If at the end in the discussion and comments and questions, if you have a way to improve it, I will be happy to hear it. Because like I said, this is something that is still a work in progress, and I am open to input as much as I hope you all are. In terms of plans in the background, we adopted the capstone approach. Capstone approach was the plan initiated by the National Archives when they began to implement digital records management processes related to email. It was applied to organizations with a good deal of structure, like a big federal bureaucracy. The purpose of it was to go and select certain people and certain offices as the places where everything funneled up to. So if you're able to capture that email account, you'll capture a good sense of everything that happens in that branch of the department or in that big department. Although I'm sure that none of our communities are as vast and sprawling as the federal bureaucracy, nonetheless, there are still a few key offices that I'm willing to bet we all have in common. A provincial, a general, superioress, some counselors, etc. So as our capstone offices, we selected the provincial and the counselors. And as I said, in July 2020, with a few months, the clock ticking down, there were 2 counselors leaving office, and it was our goal to go and use them as some of our experimental and test cases and work with them to go and try and make this capture happen. The 2 tools that we used were Aid for Mail and ePad. As a total cost for these tools, a 1-year Aid for Mail subscription costs $60. That's 60. And ePad is open source and free. So yes, a little bit of investment, but not much and nothing that will completely break the bank. Being out of the office for COVID, I used my personal machine to run ePad. Number 1, to circumvent some IT restrictions. I don't know if they would be happy with me doing that. They probably wouldn't, but I did it anyway. And to simulate in a little bit of the way, this should probably be done on a quarantined machine. I didn't do it exactly that way, but to try and simulate that a little bit. There are a few prerequisite assumptions to using some of these tools. The first one is that you will be working with the person donating the emails. I will be using the word donate and donor a little bit loosely here. They're probably closer to a transfer rather than a straight up donation. But ePad really was designed for donation, and that is the tool that I knew the best and was the most comfortable with. Yes, this is a model with some drawbacks, as in the person doing the donation or the transferring can end up with a lot of control over what they are donating or transferring and can do some selective editing. Yes, that is a problem. Yes, there are drawbacks to it, but for the time being and for a first try at this, that was a drawback that I was willing to accept. When working with a donor or a transferor, the idea is that she will also be able to discuss any organization system that she has for her emails, if she has any. If there is an organizational system, that's a good thing. She can tell you the topics and things that need restricted or a further level of scrutiny. And those all make things a lot easier. And so what I mean by organization system is, let's say that this is my Microsoft Outlook account, and this is that left-hand set of stuff. And there's inbox and drafts and council and junk mail and personal. If I have a folder here called archive and council, and I'm a sister counselor, those are 2 things that might jump out at me as, hey, we should look into saving these 2 places, and that might stop us from having to deal with everything else. As opposed to something like house business or personal, might be something that we can go and not so much worry about as being outside of the scope of the work of the office. So this is completely fake though. This is just an example. When I did the input on my own account, I went in and didn't assume that none of these existed, just straight up, just the first 1,000 that were there. And I also used my own account, I should add, to simulate the fact that the archivist would be working with the person doing the donation. So who knows their own email account better than me? So that was sort of my mindset in being able to go and work through some of this. So step 1 is to go and use Aid for Mail. Aid for Mail is a way to determine a scope for your inbox. So you could determine it by the time that a sister was on council. So if she started on January 1st, 2017, you could go and log out and block out those exact 3 years. Or if she had some email system, you can go and say, only capture the folders that say archive and council. And so that can help whittle down your scope very, very quickly if you needed to. And Aid for Mail also primarily is used to convert an email inbox into a non-proprietary format. As Mary Grace Kosta said in the last session, you can't rely on a proprietary format to exist forever. I'm sure we've all done that thing in Microsoft Outlook where we double click on an email and hit save, and it goes and becomes a little thing with a little envelope icon. That's perfectly fine for something that you need to save for your own reference. It's not so great for archiving. There's no reliability that that format is going to exist forever. I think it's called MSO, something like that. It's not going to exist forever, and it's tied to a very specific software. That's not something that you should be relying on for for proper archiving. Something like PDFs or PDFA, that's been shown to last and can be opened by any system. That's a good non-proprietary format. Same goes for JPEGs and TIFFs and WAVs and all those other formats. So step 2 is to add some preliminary metadata. You can see my title here, Scott Keefer test email number 2. That's not an extensive step. We all know metadata. We can all add that fairly fine. I'm not worried about that one. Step 3 is to begin your screening. And you can see here, this is what an EPAD page typically looks like. You can see where there's a bunch of correspondence and a bunch of entities and a bunch of labels, and that is everything that is included in that 1,000 emails. So 411 people that I corresponded with over the last year and managed to stay in my inbox. So typically it's easier to start cutting rather than deciding what to save first. So working with your donor, you can begin to decide what shouldn't be saved. So this is the first page of this sample correspondent email account. On this page, I'm seeing a few sisters. I'm seeing a few colleagues here in the archives. I'm seeing some people from the communications office, and I'm seeing an intern that we had in the office here. I can make the decision pretty quickly, or your donor can make the decision pretty quickly, that intern, probably not something that would need to be saved or that you would want to be saved for posterity. That's not something that's going to show the full work of the archives. And there's probably some educational information in there that is private and shouldn't be saved or shared. So you can go and make the decision, hey, I'm not going to go and transfer that. EPAD is fancy and nice because you can go and mark things as this do not transfer, the big red button, and you can also do so en masse. So you can go and make the determination that an entire correspondent probably shouldn't have their emails passed on to the next stage of accessioning. Next thing you might want to do would be to screen things out by topic. Again, make sure to work with your donor. This is the stage where you can go and determine, hey, if you've been using this email account to communicate with a doctor, know that there are some health terms that probably shouldn't be here, or some health topics probably shouldn't be screened in. And you can even see that EPAD has a fancy category called health, where they can go and note certain health terms that you can go and begin to screen out. And again, you can go and mark everything with a big red button, do not transfer, that stops it in its tracks and does not move it on to the next stage of accession or processing. I will give the caveat that sometimes EPAD's broad categories can catch otherwise innocuous terms as well. For example, there's a category called legal, and you'll note the highlights there are the word will, meaning the legal document of a will. This isn't about a legal document of a will, but EPAD thought it was. So it's by no means a perfect system. You still need to do a little bit of additional screening on your own, at least on that front topic-wise. EPAD also allows you to go and do full lexicon search to go and screen out words and phrases that would also be sensitive or that need a further level of restriction. again, based on discussion with your donor. This is also a good time to screen out otherwise inane topics. The big example I always go with is there are donuts in the break room. As much as I enjoy seeing that email come across my desk, it's not something that needs to be passed on for archival preservation until the day the donut dies as a food source, but that day hopefully is not coming anytime soon. Another one that comes up a lot, I know with daughters, apparently they always send around a whole bunch of emails to try and figure out whose job it is to cook dinner that night. Phrases around that, you can work with your donor to know, hey, we should screen out phrases like that. Dinner, shopping, grocery store, etc. Doing all of this can vastly eliminate the amount of emails that you have to go and do an extra level of scrutiny on. You can see here the number of emails that I marked for do not transfer were 855, leaving 182 to go and move on to the next stage of scrutiny. Yes, you are going to miss some things, and to a certain level, you have to accept that. You're going to miss things in physical correspondence as well. It's better to get most of it and accept the losses. And it's just sort of something that you have to be comfortable with. You have to be comfortable with some amount of you're going to miss something in the digital world. It's unfortunate, but that's sort of the way it is. But otherwise, I mean, screened out 80-some%, that's pretty good. Once you get through that first screening is the point where the archivist can go and take a look at everything. This is the point where you can go and weed on your own. Based on the discussions that you've had with your donor, you can decide, you can see the things that need to be saved and the things that do not need to be saved. You can realize based on the discussions, if there was something that slipped through the cracks that needs that extra level of restriction. Don't let anybody see this for an additional 50 years after it would even be open in the first place. Don't let anybody but the community see any of those access restrictions that you have in your collections. This is where you can go and take those steps for stuff that didn't necessarily make it through the first screening. And you can see on this one, I was able to go and whittle down another 102 to leave 51 messages being reviewed. At this point, you can start to put together what would be a final collection. This would be something that you could put in what EPAD calls the delivery module. Ideally, a researcher would look at this on a quarantined machine or a dummy laptop that you could go and load the messages onto. That's sort of our plan when we hit this point of majority digital collections that in-person researchers are going to use a dummy laptop disconnected from the internet. But there's an entry page to the EPAD. You can see, there's some metadata. I just put in some very basic stuff. Scott Keefer became the Provincial Archivist in 2018. Scope and content, rights and conditions, all the metadata. No, this is not extensive and everything. You would, of course, have a little bit more information than that, but just as a test. This is what a researcher for the finalized collection would see. You know, of that 50-some emails, there were 75 correspondents, 140 subjects, which is what EPAD calls them entities. Those subjects include things like they go to places, buildings, people. They do very, very good indexing and big keyword phrases that go and make them very, very researcher friendly when that day finally arrives, that researchers are using majority email collections. And you can see here, this is what one of those emails looks like. It looks like an email. There is a bunch of froms and tos. There is a block of text. There's photos that go with it. This is about a tree that fell down in the old cemetery and an old building was damaged. And because it was old and historic, that fell under the archive's purview. So it wasn't a fun day, but nonetheless, it's a picture of something that I had to deal with in my role as archivist. I should also add, the reason that EPAD is important and necessary is in order to make things readable at all. I'm going to start a different share here to show something else. When you initially use the aid for mail, it comes back as an MBOX file, which is the preservation format of email. This is what EPAD goes and translates into words. You can see a from here and a date, and then a bunch of gibberish. All that gibberish is things like attachments and photographs. So what EPAD really does is takes the plain text look of an email and makes it into something that is readable and usable, both for the archivist and for a researcher. Whoop. Picture the breakdown of the researcher view. You can see the way they break it down by person, place, university, etc. There's a couple pages of these, but I just grabbed the first one. So during this week in COVID lockdown, I went and experimented with my own account and documented all my steps and missteps. And at the end, I was able to write up a 5-page how-to guide for how this entire process works, both for the archive staff's perusal and so that we wouldn't forget this process the next time the councilors left office after July 2020. I am happy to pass this on to anybody who would like it. I'm sure it could use some refinement and questioning in places, but as a whole, I am positive that it is a system that works. About a month before the council turnover, I reached out to the 2 outgoing councilors to explain how the archives was ready to work with them for their records, and explaining that I would like to try email and try and solve the email question. And I got shot down. The notion of me having access to their email accounts struck as too personal and invasive. Whether me as if I was a sister archivist, maybe that would be a little bit different, but certainly as a lay archivist struck them as far too personal, regardless of the necessary documents that were contained within the email accounts. That's sort of where the project is right now. The next council turnover is not until 2023, if we're using the Smithsonian capstone model. I am positive that the guide works. Like I said, I am happy to take questions about the process of how to go and do this, but what I'm hoping to get out of this in a very selfish way is how can I improve this process in 2023 and actually make this happen? What is a better way for me to explain the necessity of this to people outside of the archives field who might not be comfortable turning over their email account? What are the better ways that I can improve my own inReach without making this seem too invasive and barging too far into private matters? I'm hoping the discussion can go and help me out on that. I am going to do a few slides of resources. I'm sure that the PowerPoint and this video will be available, but if you want to go and take a phone pic to get some of these links, I'll give you a few seconds to go and do that. I have a couple pages of these. But that's on the capstone model and a few how-to guides and final products on some very high scale email archiving projects. I know that the one out of the Commonwealth of Virginia on Governor Tim Kaine is very, very extensive. I also know that it's very hard to use as a user. There's a whole guide that you have to read before they even recommend you try and search for anything. Those are some walkthroughs on how to use Aid for Mail and EPAD. And I thank you all and wish both you and I the best of luck on this project.
Scott? Thank you. That was so fascinating. I didn't mean to keep hitting return with all my questions. I thought I was like returning to another paragraph in the chat, but it kept shooting my questions out. But don't even go to mine. Let's start with Sam's got his hand up. So let's hear from Sam. Sam, you want to start us off?
Yeah, it's interesting reading this because I found myself in the exact same position because last autumn I independently began my own initiative to start archiving the emails of our sisters because I'm with the Holy Union Sisters, United States Province in Fall River, Massachusetts, and so it's watching you go through this hour. On the technical side, because we use first class, our email client is hideously primitive, so I can't even export to Mbox, so I have to do some workarounds to get it in a stable format. But anyway, I was able to get some good buy-in from our leadership because I made sure to phrase it as in the same way that we collect for our sisters personnel files. We preserve their records, their correspondence, the activities of committees and other institutions within the province. We already collect all of that in paper format, and the way I framed it was that this is just us doing the same thing for electronic records because we can go and look at the discussion with the Provincial in the 70s or a lot of the back and forth in the late 60s during our restructuring. But if that were to happen today, most of that would be over email. That's what I made sure to stress to them, and also made sure to very deliberately phrase it as this is only for province business. This is not for personal. And I also did up a guide of a whole bunch of pages and made sure to have screenshots of every bit of the process for the sisters to follow, and made sure to break down this is how you sort and make sure to specifically select the things you want to export, and then if you don't select those, they will not be exported, and to stress that you don't have to give us everything. We just want what's province related, so something's personal, and I made sure to give specific criteria for what this counts as personal, this is private, so whether it's medical or whatever, and emails. Yeah, and just basically put as many caveats and off ramps and just ways to assuage them. But no, we're not going to have anything personal. You are choosing what to hand over to the archives from your email, and then we can go from there. So you don't have to worry about that, because if you don't want to give us that, you don't have to. The only big issue I've had is trying to cajole the sisters to actually get us their documents, because we had set August 1st as our please start sending us things date after spending all spring and summer making sure and announcing it every week and letting them know. And I've gotten one sister from leadership to give me, or sorry, two sisters from leadership and committees to send me things, and it's just trying to get the rest to, because I know they can do it, because we've also made sure to do Zoom information sessions and just have Q&As with any interested sisters to assuage those concerns in person and to answer any questions they might have about procedure. And even with that, it's been hard to actually get them to get me the material so I can do the appraisal and sorting and formatting and putting them in our various electronic archive boxes. So that's my experience with basically the exact same thing you're going through. So hope that helped.
Okay. Dee?
Well, it's interesting. This is fascinating, Scott, and I'm just amazed that you did it. And I'm sure the IT people do not know you did it. If they're the same IT people. But
I make no comments.
I'm sorry?
I make no comments about that.
No. Okay. All under the table. But as a former Fed as well, when we were using our federal email addresses, we were not supposed to put anything personal in those. And so most of us actually had side accounts like a Gmail account or a Hotmail account or something like that. And you did your fooling around with your friends with that. Now, that's not to say that some of the stuff didn't come through, but you lived under the knowledge with a federal address that at any moment it could be pulled and anything that you wrote could be examined. So that's one thing. Now I have a question. When didn't they used to have a way to send an email that you would put in brackets private, or, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So if the sisters could be told that these were subjects that would be equivalent to paper materials that they had to formally transfer over, then if they had you or put you as one of the recipients, so it normally comes to you. But I think there would generally be a and I know, and I've said this before, the daughters tend to be very close, hold their cards very close to their chest. They are very private. So I think you have to come up with a way to have them release information about certain subjects that deserve to be archived. But I think you're almost there. It's just getting their buy-in.
I'm really, really hoping that, like I said, I'm not pretending that this method that the procedures that I developed are the best or doesn't need some refinement or is the most efficient, but I'm positive that it works. I know it works.
That's go ahead. Okay. Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, all right. So I'm going to jump in here. And so what I'm thinking of is, you know, for the decades that I've worked in religious archives, and every time I've been in one, it seems like I'm the first lay archivist that's been there. And there is that sense of privacy and secrecy that as lay archivists, I think that we've worked pretty hard to help them understand that that's really not what the archives are all about. There are private and sensitive materials, but in general, you know, you women are fascinating and you have stories to tell that the rest of the world needs to know about. So we've worked hard to help balance that with the paper records and to help them understand that. So now we're moving into the email where, yes, Virginia mentioned, I think the word jocular, I think she said in her chat. I haven't looked, but Virginia Dowd mentioned that. So there is that casual nature where you may be a little bit more loosey-goosey with your comments in the emails. We all understand that.
True.
So my thinking is that, is there some kind of holding place? And we do this with our leadership team. I do this with all personal papers that come in. I tell the donors, this stuff is going to sit. And I always kind of jokingly say, I got a 50-year backlog. You know, I'm not going to be looking at your stuff anytime soon. And that stuff is restricted to the team that created it. So even the next team coming in does not have, it's written in our policy because that's what the team wanted, that the next incoming team does not necessarily have access to the last team's records without permission, without me looking at it first, because everybody has their right to privacy to express themselves. So is there some kind of holding place through IT where the emails from the last team could just sit? So
And see, as I understand it, and in
you're not actually going into them. That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
And so I have breached this idea with our IT, and they say that they can have it, you know, lock it down, so to speak,
Okay.
and have it sit. The difference is that a box of physical stuff can sit there for 50 years, and if it's in good condition, then it's time makes things, enough time goes past, it makes things a lot easier. Even if there is that email holding place, I'm willing to bet it's not 50 years. It definitely can't be 50 years. You know, I don't know what the length of it is. Is it 1 year? Is it 6 months? Is 6 months enough time that somebody's going to feel suddenly comfortable about their time in office? Probably not. So yes, there is, and it's worth investigating for sure. But this is one where the time scales on digital records and physical records really just don't match at all.
Correct. I hope you can find a happy medium of time, perhaps.
Yeah.
Feel free to jump in, people. I can't, if if you're unmuted and getting ready to talk, I only can see 25 of you at a time. I am going to go into the chat room.
I know I saw some questions go past, but I wasn't able to
There's a whole bunch of
read
stuff.
them extensively, so I apologize. I'm not ignoring you.
All right. Mine are kind of technical issues. Let's see. Okay, should I just go to the beginning of our bazillion comments here? One of my first questions was, what do you think of using PDF portfolio? I myself have been using this to save reference requests, emails, and responses. Is that a valid format as far as you know?
I do not know enough about PDF portfolio to be able to answer that.
All right, great. That's good. I like that answer because I don't want to be shut down.
I mean, what do you know about PDF portfolio?
Well, I don't really know too much about its longevity. I do know that it's a PDF format, which makes me think that it's okay. I'm not using it to archive important email. I'm really using it as a tool to. I save my reference emails quarterly, so I just create a portfolio by the quarter, and then the actual request data just goes into a spreadsheet. But then if I have a long exchange with somebody, I can refer back to it and see what all I provided them with. I haven't been really used it for anything else yet until I learn more about it. I just kind of liked the idea that it was a PDF format.
Okay, I do not know enough about that to speak at length or knowledgeably, unfortunately.
My second question was, what about all the endless threads when we're saving emails? That is, should I be concerned that I'm saving 7 emails when the final email has the whole thread of conversation anyway?
Yeah, that is going to be a problem of repetition. And even when you're going and doing the sorting through, I know there were a few discrepancies between numbers that I said. I know at one point I said something in the 60s and I said something in the 50s. That has to do with the email threads type of thing, because that's the problem once. So let's say you start with 3 people and a couple emails go back and forth, and then you realize, ooh, these other 2 people need jumping on. So now you hit reply and you're looping in more people. You're doing forwards. Email is hard. Email is complicated that way. And then you have, okay, but then this one is, you do those to those 5 people, but then there's just one kind of private one to one person. How does that get? There's a lot of filtering, and sometimes there is repetition. It's better to get the most complete thread, but sometimes the most complete thread isn't complete.
Right, that's correct. Kathy Urbanek, can you include the sent folder and undeleted messages in the trash folder in this process?
Aid for Mail does let you do that. The good thing about email, one of the good things about email, is that everybody ends up with a copy. And so if you go into the sent folder, a lot of times it'll be on the thread anyway already. So it isn't necessarily necessary, but yes, you do have the ability to do that with Aid for Mail.
Okay. This next one is a really good question, also from Kathleen Urbanek. Scott, does the leadership team of the Daughters have a secretary general or trusted administrative secretary who could do the initial weeding before the emails are sent to you for accessing?
She doesn't have the title Secretary General, but effectively, yes. The point is, or not, well, there is a Secretary General, but she's in Paris, not here. Outside of my concern. Yes, Dee, I saw your little look there. Yes, there is a person who could theoretically do that, or at least a position that could theoretically do that. I have a little bit of rapport with that sister. I'm going to write that down.
I think it's a really good idea. Because wouldn't they be looking, if they were packing up the folders that were physical to transfer you to anyway, it's a similar role.
That is a very good idea. I'm going to put a note of that to work with.
Scott, I'm sorry, it would be the secretary that works with the visitatrix.
Yes,
and
which does not have the title Secretary
General. They transferred a whole lot of stuff into the archives when they first got there.
Yes.
They transferred to us stuff that was going into the open ranges. We have the locked ranges. And the secretary came down and was whipping them out and putting them in the locked ranges. So they do, take care of what's there.
There is a person in that position. Yes. That is worth doing. I made a note of that.
Sister Virginia. So if you were really using this, does the donor need to open their email account with you in the archives on a computer where A4Mail or EPAD are installed? Or is it just transferred in bulk? What? Logistical question.
So logistically, I could see the easiest way being to load the email account onto a computer that had A4Mail installed or EPAD installed. I sort of when I was envisioning how this process would work, I sort of imagined it as, you know, open the email account, give the walkthrough, be available for questions, but also not sitting behind and looking over the screen, you know, to give the donor or transferor assistance, but enough freedom to know that you're not reading everything that she's marking sensitive or screening out. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Virginia?
Well, so they're doing it on their own computer with those things installed?
I envision it as working with either a laptop or on a computer, load the email account onto one of those computers that already had it installed. So it would be an Archives computer. I wasn't dead set on that, but that's sort of what I thought would be the easiest.
The next comment is from Jennifer Morrison, and this echoes, I think, many of our experiences. We told our leadership team and all of our department heads to send us any and all emails they direct to a broad audience or a general group, and then had to do some education about what that meant. Then there is no risk of anything being too personal. So have us get onto those lists.
Yeah, any of those email blast or publication type of things, those are significantly easier to go and collect, again, because there is, like you said, there is no privacy concern, but it's just, you have to make sure that you're actually on that list and that you're getting all of them and that you have a procedure down to get all of them.
I'm going to read Virginia's comment and then we'll go to Veronica. She's got her hand up. But Virginia, we kind of addressed it before. When I tried to present the necessity of capturing business that takes place through email since it has replaced paper correspondence, I was greeted by a very highly educated member of leadership with a shocked look. She was convinced that there was no need for this capture. To her, email was just too jocular, too personal in nature. We did kind of discuss that.
I mean, whenever
it's hard.
I'm not acting like this always works, obviously. I always try and present the analog corollary just because that is easier for people to understand. So if, you know, I know I'm going to have one of those meetings or one of those talks, I have the equivalent box from 40 years ago ready. And so, you know, here is the folder of correspondence, or here's the 2 folders or the box of correspondence. Where is yours? Do you have one of these? And the answer inevitably is no, it all is on the email account now. Bits and bytes are hard to wrap your head around. It's hard for me to wrap my head around, and I am, you know, a professional archivist. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's you have to find a way to get that message across. I tend to go and try and present the physical analog in front of them. That's sort of my methodology. Sometimes it works very well, sometimes not so much.
Sam also mentions that a big part of his proposal was convincing the sisters that also that their emails were valuable and worth preserving too. Veronica?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on the question about how to download the emails. And I was wondering if you had thought about if people are using Outlook, if you could just get the PST file, I think they call it, or OST. It ends with an S and a T. And that's the whole core record of all the email for different email accounts. Like for my Outlook, I have like 4 or 5 emails within my Outlook, and each one has a separate one of those files.
To my knowledge, that is a proprietary format, but if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me.
Also, you couldn't put it into that aid to mail system?
You could put that into aid for mail and convert it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That you could do, but to just do the PST, that would be a very temporary fix.
Okay.
Will this work with Gmail? Yes, there is a process for Aid for Mail to work with Gmail. And actually with something like Gmail, it's even more important that you convert it to a non-proprietary format, because Gmail, your organization isn't even in control of the servers in the first place.
Mhm.
And that's
Holly.
Gmail, Yahoo, any of them.
Hey, Holly.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Scott. So I came on in October 2019, and right around that time, I had an outgoing provincial, and we've had this discussion. She had a lot on her plate. There was a lot going on. I was grateful that by nature, she had her own filing system where she printed email. And then she did a major purge that that she pre-sorted and gave to me. So I didn't get electronic format, but I did get printed, and who knows what gaps were there, but that's what I got. So when she left, I approached the council and new vicar, and also the admin that works with the council. And so now if they're preparing for meetings, if there's particular emails, they create PDFs for those meetings of the emails, and they put them in those folders. And I've also said, if you have announcements or anything like that, and you don't want to talk to me, feel free to please just drop stuff in my mailbox, printed in my mailbox, because they're more comfortable with that than me giving them what they perceive as more work. It's that, or I said, CC me on something and I will print it, which it kind of changes the workflow and how things are supposed to work with archives.
For sure.
But it's an answer that's working for them right now,
Yeah.
that they're comfortable with. It's not pretty. It's not always cleanly functional, but it's helping that answer for the moment.
Yeah. And that's
until I
what
can
for the,
figure out something better.
and that's one for the time being, where that is the way the files are being used. And that you can preserve original order because their original order is to print everything out. And that's one where all my thing of, don't print out the whole email account. The archivist probably shouldn't be printing out the whole email account. If the people or the person that you're documenting, if that's their system, then preserving the paper printouts is preserving original order. So you're in a good situation right now,
Good point.
at least for the time being.
And that was less intimidating or nerve-wracking or for them, you know what I mean? Because they're selecting in the moment of what they're doing to fit their work process versus trying to retroactively go into something they perceive that all of a sudden now they have this new load of work and filtering that they need to go through that could potentially get something personal. So they felt more in control and that they could trust the process from their side better. How much I'm missing, that's another question, but at least
Sure.
it's something over nothing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We have a whole bunch of comments and still to get through. I'll just read them to you. I'm sorry. You got it. You got comments. So here they come. Let's see, Casey. Casey said, we've got Microsoft Outlook and Adobe Acrobat, so we can convert emails to PDF-A with a button / plugin. We have had several meetings with leadership about emails with a very basic workflow, no IT support, but there is no follow through. They are not willing to take the time to sift through emails or feel comfortable, or they do feel uncomfortable doing so.
Yeah, and that's, we talk about how we're all busy all the time. Our counselors and our provincials and our superiors are also very, very busy people. That is why again, my envisioning of this was that it'll be something, in that month or two after they leave office, sort of in that in-between stage, or, before they take a new ministry and it ramps up to sort of tie up the loose ends of their counselorship. But yeah, sifting through emails, I don't want to sift through. I didn't want to sift through my own emails. I had to go and leave the office entirely to go and do that. It takes a while. it doesn't take weeks, but it takes a couple days to go and do that sort of thing.
I do feel a bit of a devil's advocate about some of this. I think about before email, everything would be either written or done on the telephone. So we didn't capture everything that happened on the telephone. Now, instead of telephone calls, we're going to include that. As much as we include things that we would have written in email, we also include things that we would have telephoned about in email. So there must be a happy medium. So, you know, I don't want to be flip about it, but sometimes I think like God's going to give me really what I'm supposed to be. I mean, I have to do my own footwork and do my job, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes like God's going to give me what I'm really supposed to be documenting. And, you know, and if it's the head of housekeeping's email that I'm not going to get, you know, so be it. You know, I just hope I get, I hope I get all the substantive stuff. I hope I do. Sometimes I just, okay, Sam, we did yours. Meg Paulino. I had a sister pass away. I ended up with her computer and her open email. I was wondering about capturing some of her emails. She had been on leadership. Wow. That has never happened to me. That's a big question in my congregation, what to do with deceased sisters' email accounts.
I admit that is a problem because I'd always been and had the envisioning that I'd be working with someone who just recently left office. But yes, that is something that I have not been able to accurately foresee. I don't want to call that a good problem to have, but I'm glad that somebody had the foresight for you to go and pass that on to you. I would say first, make sure that this is, you know, I don't know if you knew this sister or not, talk to some people that she knows and make sure this is something that she would have wanted. You know, is she the type of sister who might have left journals to the archive or would not want her personal materials to go to the archive? But if she was on leadership, then it doesn't matter. That's a tough one. If she's on leadership, then you would need to go and capture that sort of thing.
Right? I know. I can't believe you ended up with her laptop. Rebecca Abel mentions that her administrators have professional email addresses as well as personal emails, such as Dee mentioned. And that's interesting. So her professional emails, they have archivist at, priorist at, etc. So
that's a good system.
It is a good system. I could see where that would filter things much more at a professional level into the archives. Okay, Virginia Young. I'm curious if emails with two-step verification cause any.
No, that's not me.
Oh, just as Young, I'm sorry, I thought that was you. From Young to everyone. I am curious if emails with two-step verification cause any trouble for email archiving. Plus, how much storage is needed if you can give me a general idea. Actually, I want to know how other institutions are estimating their server capacity with all these digital preservation, web archiving, and email archiving. Oh my gosh. I say give it all to me, huh?
Yeah, the good news is that an inbox file, considering the amount of material, doesn't take up that much space. The problem is once there's attachments and photographs, that ups that number a little bit. It takes up, I'm not saying it takes up no space, it takes up way less space than a WAV file. Because if you're preserving a bunch of audio or video and it's all the WAVs and MP4s, it takes up way less space than that. But yeah, just because it's not boxes and shelves anymore, don't think that your concerns of space and having to play Tetris and Jenga go away. It doesn't.
Oh boy, I've had to uninstall some of that in some files I've gotten. Veronica, I mentioned we convert our Outlook emails to PDF. This does include attachments. That's from Casey, and I'll also piggyback on that PDF portfolio also includes attachment as well. So that's kind of nice. Virginia Dowd, I was told that as long as you have Outlook on your computer, you can open those PST files, but I was having problems opening items I had saved. We just went to Gmail.
And that's the exact problem right there. Once you're not with Outlook anymore, then it goes away.
Cruising through some comments, some thanks. Digital Archivist presentations, yeah, okay, all right. Veronica says they had a digital archivist from the Notre Dame sisters who locally gave an extensive presentation once. It seemed like she was getting email in that way just by providing flash drives and telling them where the file will be located. Sister Jerry, as a community member, should the email received from the community be saved? We have paper files of such from before email. I do. I save all of those community emails. I think it's a really good glimpse into what was happening in convent and community life.
Yeah, I think that's, if they're just an email blast to everybody, that might be something.
Oh, that you can get from the creating office.
Yeah.
That's true too. So you wouldn't have to save it necessarily as an email if they've created it in a Word document.
I think I'm understanding that situation correctly.
I think so. I think, Sister Jerry, you're talking about like just the weekly emails that are sent out, like here's what's going on, and I think so. Veronica Buchanan says, yes, we have been saving those as well. Casey, this is my final comment. Through Outlook, you can create a shared folder and create an archive folder. You can then use settings to share any emails placed in this folder with any other internal email. So you set up the folder on the sister's email with permission for you, the archivist, to access this folder only. So Casey, I don't know where you are, but it sounds like you have some great thoughts about this whole thing that you might want to share with us in person if you're here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we don't have any IT support, but there are ways through with Microsoft Outlook. If you have Outlook and Adobe Acrobat, and if you change there, naturally on Outlook there is no Acrobat button, but you're able to get an Acrobat button, and you can set up what's called automatic archival, which actually you can set up a regular date or time for Outlook to archive your emails, and that means they will create a PDF file, and this will include, and it will actually index all of the emails, and all of the attachments will also be included. And so one way we proposed for this to be easier for our leadership is if we created a folder. So just like you can create any folder in your email, you create a folder, we called it archive, and then using settings through Outlook, you just right click, sort of change your settings for this particular folder. You can share access with any other internal email. So, the archivist would have access to Sister Mary's emails only in the archive folder. And so then we can convert to PDF, anything that sister puts into that archive folder. And if she feels more comfortable doing it, then we give instructions on that. Now, again, we have still received resistance, and we figured that this was a very basic way to do this. But it is effective. I do it for my own emails now. I have a regular automatic archival for my own emails for work. So it does work. It produces really nice PDF index where you can see any of those emails as well as open any attachments as well. So that's certainly another option.
Thank you so much. Options. Any other comments? Questions for Scott? Scott, I think that you did such a wonderful job of not only just your commitment to exploring this whole issue on your own time, but to really figuring it out, but to explaining it to us. Sometimes I think that, when you're speaking comments, we end up having more questions than actual comments. So I hope that you got some good feedback. I still come back to, giving time somehow and trying to figure that all out. I love the idea of the general secretary too, helping out.
Yeah, I definitely have some notes. So thank you, everybody, too.
And I really appreciate Casey talking a little bit more, since we're already converting ours to PDFs anyway. So I love the whole idea of the auto archiving. That sounds like a great tool that may already exist in software that we own. So thank you so much today, everybody. This takes us to the end of our conference today. And we're going to meet here again for one final week next Thursday at, I have 12:30. My schedule's correct. We'll meet at 12:30 next week. We've got yet another exciting lineup. I think Holly is speaking next week. And well, to speak in Sister Grace Marie, and I'm not sure who all else, but anyway, I think it's going to be great. It's been a really fun month. It's really good to see all of you. So thanks for joining, and we'll see. Oh, and we'll have our ACWR business meeting next week as well. Right, Mary Navarre? I'd see you there. It's good to see you. All right.
Yes, indeedy. We will do that at the very end. If I remember, well, take notes.
Right, our illustrious secretary.
It's been good. This has been a good meeting, and I've been happy with the whole thing.
Yeah,
I think I've been happier than I thought I would be.
I know, since we're not in person, I know, so I can't hug everybody. That makes me, I know. All right, everybody. Well, let's go pretend we're all going out for dinner together after this.
Oh, yeah. Good
Great.
idea.
We'll see you next Thursday.